to comply with what the Trump administration wanted it to do to make things better for the Jewish and Israeli students was very easy. Very simple measures that could have been taken. And they keep refusing to do it, even at the cost of billions of dollars. Is this a self-immolation by Harvard? Because it really looks like it. It would be so easy for them to comply.
Yeah, I think they want to be the symbol of the resistance against the Trump administration. I think that they have a lot of their benefactors at that school who want to be aggressive and pushing back. And it is quite ridiculous. I mean, they've simply refused to punish those who have committed, I think, terrible acts on campus. Even their own report on anti-Semitism, I thought, was pretty damning about what's happened there at the school. And I guess Harvard is just assuming that, well, they have a lot of financial backing. They have a lot of endowments. They have over $50 billion in endowments, that they can simply weather this storm and hope that they can wait out the Trump administration. But I think President Trump and his administration are going to be extremely aggressive. I think it's ridiculous that a school, an elite school that portrays itself as a bastion of tolerance, has allowed things to get out of hand like this and has continued to do so. And so, again, they're putting pressure on the school. And they didn't just drop the subject. They just didn't take the money that they could take before. They're going to continue to put pressure until this issue is resolved. So good on the Trump administration for doing that.
Yeah, and again, I mean, our overriding fact here that everyone needs to remember is that everybody knows that if it were any other minority group, but specifically black students on campus, Latinos, gay and lesbian students who were being treated in this way, Harvard would have acted very sternly against anyone who was harassing them. And rightfully so, by the way. I don't have a problem with that. It's the selective decision by them not to do this for a different minority on campus. That is the stark, obvious fact that will kill them in court, that will kill them in the court of public opinion, and yet they're still choosing to die on this hill. All right, Jarrett, you have a piece in the Daily Signal contrasting the absolute decision-making and, I think, accountability-taking by President Trump in this administration, most notably exemplified by his decision to go and strike Iran, and contrasting that with the presidency by committee that we probably had with Joe Biden and the autopen presidency. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I compared especially the Iran strike to what happened at the pullout out of Afghanistan, where you had seemingly lack of decision making. You had a president who was not really communicative with the American people. In fact, there was a period where people were dying, including Americans, where the president wasn't saying anything. President Trump was very much engaged with the public. He was direct in dealing with Iran, saying, "You will not have a nuclear weapon. We will do what we can to stop that." And then when those lines were crossed, when the 60-day window came to a close, he took decisive action and backed a strong ally. I think it's so different from how President Joe Biden made a lot of threats, I think, globally, saying, America's strong, don't mess with us, but never really followed up. And it does, I think, get to the difference in executive leadership and the danger that President Biden's presidency was to America, not just for political reasons, but for the fact that the president was simply not in command of himself, not in command of the administration. It felt like we were sleepwalking through history. I think that's very different under President Trump, who's taken a hands-on approach, especially in these big issues like the potential to go to war. I mean, that's what the chief executive was created to be. President Biden didn't uphold that. The Trump administration and President Trump specifically is doing that.
Yeah, it's just so amazing that they say he wants to be a dictator. I mean, look, everyone wants to have their way. But we've never had a more accountable president than Donald Trump. And by the way, it's not all his own doing. Just his enemies have held him more accountable than any president before him. It's such a ludicrous argument. And despite all that, he's still taking all this accountability. It's really quite amazing. Jarrett Stetman, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great rest of your week.
Thank you, Jake.
Coming up, an update on that firebombing attack on Jewish demonstrators in Boulder, Colorado. And it's not a happy one. Stay tuned. And a little something everyone should know about why the very public spectacles like Alligator Alcatraz are actually necessary in the overall fight versus illegal immigration. That's next, when American Sunrise Early Edition comes right back. no, that's not a tape. That's a live shot of the Senate floor of all these senators who've been there all night. They've been voting on amendment after amendment and after amendment. Welcome back to American Sunrise Early Edition here on Real America's Voice. I'm Jake Novak. Thank you especially to those of you on Getter and Rumble who are already up and chatting and debating and all those kinds of things. Of course, you went to bed last night, not those senators. Oh, I guess they probably slept on cots in their offices. A sad development to tell you about in the case of the anti-Semitic flame-throwing attack just 4 weeks ago on Jewish demonstrators in Boulder. An 82-year-old woman, Karen Diamond, has died of her injuries. Remember, Mohammed Sabri Soliman was charged with federal hate crimes right after the incident. He hasn't denied doing this, so I'm going to say he did it. Remember, Soliman was in the U.S. on an expired visa, and he had applied for asylum during the Bush administration and had been rejected. The Biden administration let him in. Incredible. All right, speaking of illegal immigration, the White House and the state of Florida will be unveiling today a new weapon against illegal immigration. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt explains.
President Trump will travel to the great state of Florida to attend the opening of a new illegal alien detention center located at Dade Collier Training and Transition Airport alongside Secretary Kristi Noem, Governor Ron DeSantis, Congressman Byron Donalds, and other state and local leaders. We hope to see many of you there. The facility is in the heart of the Everglades and will be informally known as Alligator Alcatraz. There is only one road leading in, and the only way out is a one-way flight. It is isolated and surrounded by dangerous wildlife and unforgiving terrain. The facility will have up to 5,000 beds to house, process, and deport criminal illegal aliens.
Hey, folks, do you think this is overkill, having a big spectacle like a facility like this surrounded by alligators? Well, you would be wrong. A big reason why we have so much illegal immigration in this country is because sometimes true and sometimes false messages are sent all over the world that America's doors are open. Come on in. There's no checks. There's nothing to stop you. Welcome. We won't stop you. Do whatever you want here. When we make big spectacles like Alligator Alcatraz or building a big wall, it pays us back in many times over in letting people know that we are no longer an attractive nuisance. You know, like when you have a neighbor who has a nice swimming pool, in most states, you have to build a fence around it. You have to make it clear that if you climb that fence and go into this pool, it's on you. We don't do that in this country. We make it sound like it's not nice and easy. Things like the wall and things like Alligator Alcatraz are an important message we have to send because so many other people are telling them the exact opposite. And under Trump, that's a lie. And people need to understand we're not open for just everyone. We're going to have a lawful immigration system in this country. So Alligator Alcatraz is not overkill. You can tell your friends and neighbors. All right, I'll admit it. I've been totally uninterested in the P. Diddy trial and haven't mentioned it even once in this program. We're going to break that streak today because there was one aspect of the trial that emerged yesterday that has me intrigued and frankly terrified. At one part during the jury's deliberations yesterday, the jury foreman informed the judge that he wasn't so sure. In fact, he was pretty sure that one of the jurors didn't understand his basic instructions because he probably doesn't understand English. I'm sure this happens in a lot of jury trials, but this really slapped me in the face yesterday. Are you telling me that somebody like you or me could be tried by a jury one day, God forbid, and that there are members of the jury who don't understand English? I mean, are you kidding? Anyway, this is a major, major trial. I can't believe a mistrial hasn't been declared, although I guess I'm kind of happy because I don't want them to go out and do it all over again and bore me again. Again, I got plenty of sympathy for P. Diddy's victims, but just the whole story makes me sick. But honestly, a juror who doesn't understand English in the biggest trial going on right now in America, my goodness. I'm sure this is going on in other cases too, and that is a travesty. All right, I want to talk briefly about a story now that has a cultural impact as well as a commentary on the news media, and it's another trial story. Now, you might remember Brian Kohberger. He's the one who killed 4 Idaho college students. He pleaded guilty. He was the Washington State University criminology grad student. Now, he did these murders. He didn't know these students who he killed. He was trying to become like one of those celebrity mass killers. He had an obsession with the BTK, bind, torture, kill, mass murderer. And he was just basically a ghoul. And he was hoping for a lot of attention and notoriety. Well, he kind of got it, but now he's not going to get it because he has pleaded guilty to those murders. There will be no trial, most likely, unless the judge rejects it tomorrow. And I don't think the judge is going to do that. There are a couple things I want to point out here. First of all, the families of at least one of the victims are very upset about this because in return for pleading guilty, Kohberger will not get the death penalty. And if there was ever a case where it was deserved, it's this one. So I think that's egregious, and I feel for that family. In these cases, especially cases like this, where there's no doubt and there was definitely terrible malice involved, even though he didn't know these people, and a terrible motive, I am in favor of the death penalty, okay? And most of Americans still are in favor of the death penalty. They have been in every poll since they've been taking polls. And I don't like prosecutors taking it off the table when the people don't have a chance to get their voices in. Okay, so that's part one. But there is a silver lining to this guilty plea. As I said, there will now be no trial. And that notoriety that this mass murderer wanted isn't going to be that much. He's going to be forgotten much faster because of this. And maybe the next mass murderer who wants to do something like this to get notoriety will no longer be induced or lured by this kind of stuff because of this publicity that isn't now going to happen because there probably won't be a trial. So it's a mixed bag here. I'll talk more about this with David Brody at the end of the hour. All right, let's talk about some better things. An organic skincare brand called Purience has been turning heads recently in Elle, Cosmopolitan, and LA Weekly magazines. To date, they've helped over 60,000 women to fall in love with their skin complexion again. Purience delivers clean, organic skincare without harsh preservatives. That's what that is. Their Cellular Restore Serum features a gentle alternative to retinol called Bacchiol. It's a small focus group that told us that 92.9% of women saw fewer wrinkles after just 3 weeks of applying Cellular Restore Serum. Their cellular hydration serum contains tremella mushroom, which hydrates the deepest layers of skin better than hyaluronic acid. And then there's Lift and Grow. That's an organic eye cream. If you want to lighten the appearance of dark under eye circles and restore a radiant complexion, then you'll love Lift and Glow. Finally, they have Even Glow Serum. Even Glow features Kadaku Plum, which delivers 100 times more concentrated vitamin C than oranges. Even Glow works wonders for reducing dark spot appearance. And right now, for a limited time, you can save 35% on all Purience products. Simply go to Purience.com and enter coupon code EARLY at checkout. That's PUREANCE.com and coupon code EARLY to save 35% on your order today. Coming up, the defense contractors didn't get a prolonged war on Iran, but that doesn't mean that they don't have a lot of business coming in. I'll look at your money, the markets, and things that blow up real good when American Sunrise Early Edition comes right back. Is it bad that when we show live shots of the Senate floor, I'm more interested in how they keep that carpet so clean? I guess there's no eating allowed on the Senate floor, and they have a good maintenance crew. It's a well-maintained carpet, of course, on our taxpayer money. Welcome back to American Sunrise Early Edition. I'm Jake Novak. Let's take a look at where the markets are going to start today. Seeing a little bit of red, but emphasis on the word little. That is basically almost a flat open predicted. The NASDAQ down maybe a 0.25%. The rally continues, though. That's why I have that banner down there, because yesterday the Dow was up another 275 points, and I'm feeling like we might see some green in stocks today. That's not really a very low open. Now look at gold, up 1.5%, more than 1.5%, and I think gold is going to go up more if the Senate bill passes, or even if it doesn't. Either way, I think people are going to expect more spending, so I expect gold to go up because more spending usually means gold goes up. I'll talk a little bit more about gold in a minute. And look at crude oil. It's at that $65 a barrel level still, really holding steady there. Let's take a look at Bitcoin. And I'm going to predict it's still in that window of 104 to 110. And there it is, 106. It's stuck there. It'll be there probably for another couple days. Let's see what happens after, if this bill passes, et cetera, et cetera. Bitcoin, of course, still way, way up from where it was last year. All right, there was no prolonged war in Iran, thank goodness. But America still needs more weapons and ammo. And that's what Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth told the big defense contractors at a meeting at the Pentagon late last week that we just found out about. So the news of that came out yesterday. And so shares of the big defense giants like Lockheed Martin and RTX, which used to be known as Raytheon. I have a hard time calling it RTX. Can we please just keep calling it Raytheon? Anyway, they both rose 1% each yesterday. Those defense contractors don't usually rise very much in any given day. So you know that news was good for them. Hey, a massive replenishment is needed for our munitions for a number of reasons, but especially because we've sent so many of them to Ukraine. So the defense contractors kind of always win in the end, even though there's no war in Iran. And for people who think they always want wars to start, well, maybe that's kind of true, but they're going to make their money anyway. Don't worry about them. Hey, could one of those sexy hostile takeovers things that used to happen in the 1980s, remember the movie Wall Street, could that be happening again? It's possible. Home Depot announced a $4.3 billion deal to buy buildings material company GMS. But not so fast. Brad Jacobs, kind of the Gordon Gekko of his time, just kidding, but Brad Jacobs, he's a mover and a shaker. He owns QXO, that's another firm, and he wants GMS too, and he's offered $5 billion to buy it, and he's threatening to take this whole thing to the shareholders to see if they're willing to accept $700 million less from Home Depot. Let the battle begin. This could get interesting. I'm going to be watching. Okay, we'll have to see if this part of the big, beautiful bill survives, but an interesting part of the measure slams new tariffs on Chinese competitors to rooftop solar panel makers here in the United States. The result was companies like Solar Edge, which is an American company, it's also Israeli, their shares rose 10% yesterday. That's a nice jump for a solar company. Sunrun, which is another American company, rose 3%. So not all the greeny companies hate this bill or this administration. It's not all, if your friends say, Trump, the environment, he's helping the environment with this tariff if this goes through. All right, ladies and gentlemen, start your engines. I am really trying to get through 1 week on this program without having to do a negative story about Nissan, but the company simply won't let me. Leaked emails out of the company show that Nissan is asking its suppliers to hold off on taking payments for a few months while it tries to get back on its feet. What would you say to that, to such a request, if you were one of their suppliers? I'm thinking you're not going to like that. Is it time to call in Luca Brazzi? I hope Nissan works this out without getting any of its thumbs broken. This is a dire situation at Nissan. And remember, folks, I'm not dancing on Nissan's graves. I like a lot of their products. I want it to survive. But this is one of the worst things I've ever heard. I've never heard, some of you who really know the automotive industry and are a lot older than I am, maybe you've heard of something like this before, but leaked emails showing that they're sending their suppliers requests to hold off on collection, that is not a good sign. I'm glad I'm not a Nissan bondholder. Let's put it that way. All right, a couple of weeks ago, I told you about a new way Dodge Ram is trying to increase market share in America. Of course, that was the story about Dodge Ram offering a very, very long-running warranty, A little bit of a risk, but that definitely got people's eyes open. Well, now they're trying something else to increase market share. It's good old-fashioned lower prices. I'm showing you pictures of the new Dodge Express Warlock. It starts at $53,700. Sounds like a lot, but that's actually clearly less than competing Ford F-150 and Chevy Silverados. So we'll see if this works. I remember about 15 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, Dodge Ram really flooded the market with very low-cost trucks, and I started to see them more and more on the roads. That definitely helped them. So again, let's see if this works for them. Dodge Ram is definitely one of the better-looking trucks out there. I don't know about reliability, though. Tell me about that in the Getter and the Rumble chat. I'd love to hear from those of you who drive these trucks regularly. I live in New York, so I don't. Ford CEO Jim Farley. He has now come around, as I told you yesterday, to admitting there are some very serious positives to the Trump tariffs. Remember, he was all gloom and doom back in February. Now he's changed his tune. But now he's getting even more on point, I think. Now I think we should listen to something he's saying when it comes to American workers. Farley is now pushing for a bigger investment in the trades in American public schools from K through 12, all the way through post-high school. He also wants some of these trade schools to get more federal funding. Hey, he's a little bit late to that idea. As you might remember, President Trump already floated that idea a little bit earlier this year when he talked about taking that federal funding he wants to pull from Harvard and schools like that and using it to build and support trade schools in America. So welcome to the party, Jim. We're actually glad to have you. This is an important discussion we have to have in America. And by the way, it's not just for people who make the cars and trucks in the factories. It's also for mechanics who service them. A lot of car companies are realizing that if they don't have good mechanics at their dealerships and in other independent mechanic places, they're in trouble too. We need more of all of this here in America, especially with the computerized systems we have in cars right now. You can't just look under your hood right now and do it yourself unless you have some training. Okay, I apologize in advance for the salty language you're about to look at here, but I need to show you yet another very expensive but hopelessly vandalized vehicle. We blocked it out. The word was HOE with exclamation points, so you can understand what you're seeing there. This is a very badly vandalized vehicle, and it looks like it's due to some serious infidelity. That's my educated guess. This is or was a 2023 Land Rover P530 SE. It usually lists for about $109,000. But now you might be able to get it on auction this week for, let's say, a lot less. Mechanics say the paint is really, really almost impossible to remove from this car. And they say the damage that was done inside of the car, especially to the driver's console, is so bad, they can't even tell how many miles the vehicle has on it. But I'm thinking this. Maybe you can use it to teach a scared straight class to male and female philanderers. Maybe that'll be like your centerpiece in a school for people who can't be faithful to their spouses and girlfriends and boyfriends, whatever. That's a big, big revenge motive there. $109,000 on a Land Rover. Ouch. Okay, this month, Tax Network USA proudly celebrates our nation's birthday, honoring freedom, resilience, and financial independence. To mark the occasion, they're offering 10% off all services through July 4th. If you're dealing with back taxes or missed the April 15th deadline, don't wait. The IRS is rapidly stepping up enforcement. Penalties can add up quickly, up to 5% per month, maxing out at 25% of your total tax bill just for not filing. That's on top of what you already owe. But there's good news. Tax Network USA can still help you turn things around. Whether you're self-employed, run a business, or your books are a complete mess, their team knows how to cut through the chaos and find solutions that work. Your consultation is always free, and getting ahead of the problem now could help you avoid harsh penalties, wage garnishments, or surprise tax levies, bank levies. Take the first step. Call 800-905-8000 or tnusa.com/RAV. And don't forget, you'll get 10% off all services through July 4th as part of their celebration of our nation's birthday. Regain control of your finances with expert help from Tax Network USA. Coming up, Bill Gates, Larry Fink, Mark Benioff, they're all the big money men who insist on lecturing us about making woke investments. I'll be joined in just a moment by a man who fights against that nonsense for a living. American Sunrise Early Edition. We'll be right back. It's Tuesday, July 1st. Here are this morning's top stories. They're still voting. The Senate is going through amendment after amendment on the budget bill, and new divisions among Republicans are putting overall passage more and more in doubt. Oh, and now there's a nasty threat from Elon Musk thrown into the mix. The pushback on sanctuary cities is getting serious. The Justice Department is suing LA Mayor Karen Bass and the City Council over their sanctuary city policies that have put ICE agents in danger and deprived them of their lawful jurisdiction. LA may just be the first city targeted with this tactic. President Trump will be in Dade County today for the opening and dedication of Alligator Alcatraz. It's another example of why very visible public displays are a big part of battling illegal immigration. We have to let people know we're serious. And the 82-year-old woman badly burned by an illegal immigrant anti-Semite in Boulder, Colorado, has died. If you think allowing just about everyone to come and stay in this country has no negative effects, remember her name, Karen Diamond. American Sunrise Early Edition continues now. Welcome back to American Sunrise Early Edition. It's a Tuesday. I'm Jake Novak. Thanks again for those of you also watching on Getter and Rumble and commenting and debating. Remember, watching the news is no longer a passive exercise in America, so make sure you get your say. Joining me now is William Flaig. He's the founder and CEO of the American Conservative Value ETF. That stands for Exchange Traded Funds. That means basically it's like a mix of a bunch of stocks and companies that you can invest in that all have either a similar theme, a similar industry, and in this case, they're not woke. But Bill, I have to ask you first about the big, beautiful bill. You're a financial guy, and I'm seeing big banks, by the way, they like this bill, even though it adds to the deficit. What's your take on this overall? Do you support it? And what are some of your favorite or least favorite things about it?
Well, thank you for having me. And I love alliteration. So right there, you can tell I'm a fan of the bill. It gets watered down the more hands that get in it. We need bigger majorities in both houses, so it doesn't have to get so watered down in the future. I think what is unfortunate or what pops out is that it doesn't reduce the deficit directly. President Trump says this is the best that can be done, and I agree.
I wonder about some of the other things that are going on in the bill. Some of the work against illegal aliens. Apparently that's been watered down a little bit overnight. We're going to find out, I guess, in the coming hours exactly where we stand right now. But I can tell you this, gold is going to go up if this thing passes. I can tell you this also, some companies will be winners and some companies will be losers. But one thing I want to ask you about just really quickly is, because this is a real pet peeve of mine, the doubling of the standard deduction by President Trump and his administration in 2017 in that tax bill in his first administration just isn't talked about enough, not by Trump's supporters and certainly not by his detractors. To me, this is a huge deal. And unless this bill passes, that tax break for blue-collar, lower-middle-class tax-paying America will be taken away. It will be the biggest tax hike for middle-class Americans ever. And unless you have a plan to replace that tax break, I don't think it's responsible for people, especially Republicans, to be against this bill. They have to say, I'm against this bill, but here's how we're going to save this tax cut. And I haven't heard too many of them who oppose this bill say that. That bothers me, Bill.
Yeah, the opposition in the Republican Party, so to speak, they don't have a comprehensive plan or alternative. It needs to get passed, and I think it will in short time.
Well, yeah, it might just take a little while longer. All right. Bill, let's get into your wheelhouse here. I have a buddy named Charlie Gasparino. He's a reporter for the New York Post, and he has a new book out called Go Woke, Go Broke. And I know you agree with a lot of that messaging. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you started this Conservative Values Fund and what it's all about?
Yeah, no, thank you. And I'm familiar with the book. Great title. I wish the SEC would let me say things like that. We started the American Conservative Values Fund in late 2020. Actually, we launched 2 weeks before the election. So essentially we launched a very low point, and things have improved quite dramatically. We are worried about corporate wokeism. I'd say our biggest concern since we've been around is the suppression of conservative voices and services by large tech companies and financial service providers. the corporate wokeism is certainly a concern. And similar to the theme in the book, which has been around for, I think, about a year or so, is this idea that companies playing politics in the various incarnations of it, they hurt shareholder values, they hurt shareholder returns. That's the shareholders' money. Let's invest it in growing the company and not in a political agenda.
You know, it's amazing to me because that last point is so important. These companies that have gone on these woke policies have lost money. And some of them have started to reverse. People like Larry Fink, at BlackRock, talking about now he's no longer so Mr. Environmental and pro-woke policy guy. But there was never any apology from him to his shareholders and to the public. He came on CNBC and stations like that and spoken in interviews all the time, browbeating us about how this is the way you have to do it. And we have to invest this way and we're going to make it profitable. And when it didn't work out that way, he didn't apologize. There's no humility there. He just said, I'm changing the policy. It's just incredible to me. You know, I think you'll agree with me that one of the secrets to being a successful investor is humility, is understanding that you could be wrong, and most importantly, learning from the mistake when you're wrong and making it clear to those who are relying on you that there was a mistake made and you've learned from it. Isn't this woke stuff also a good example of no humility?
Yes, for sure. Hypocrisy. I mean, I don't think Larry Fink has had a change of heart. He's just being pragmatic, and he, knows the tide has shifted. And I think any opportunity he gets, and the other, tech CEOs who've seem to be changing or saying the right things, I think once they get an opportunity to revert back to what they want, that they'll do that.
There is something interesting going on, though. If we get back to the big, beautiful bill that I'd like to get your take on, because I wonder if this bothers you, and it's okay if it does or it doesn't. But if this bill passes, at least so far, it looks like the added tariffs on Chinese solar panels for rooftop solar panels will be increased. In other words, President Trump and the United States will slap bigger tariffs on them. And so the American companies that make rooftop panels yesterday had a big leap in their shares. SolarEdge was up 10% yesterday. That's a lot. And Sunrun was up 3%. That's a nice one-day move for those stocks. So here you have a couple of, I would say, kind of woke companies, although I don't think solar is always as woke as some of these other companies that don't really show much of a business plan. Still, I wonder how you feel about that, because, they're going to benefit from something that probably at the private parties they go to and the people who support these businesses, they're probably complaining about Trump and his tariffs. And at the same time, they're going to pocket a big, big bonanza if this thing goes through. Yes, I think getting back to our fund and our investment objective, I mean, our focus is on avoiding the worst companies, the companies that are fighting against conservative values. There are companies whose business plan is essentially, woke, or their customer base is, liberal people. And, my hat's off to them. They know their business, and they know what they want to do. They're not hypocrites. We won't necessarily own them, but, it's business is business. Yeah. I mean, listen, when it comes to energy, I'm one of those guys who's in favor of, hey, look, let's mine whatever energy we can get. I think solar plays a role. I think it's probably a minor role, but not bad. My previous owner of this house had solar panels on the house, so I didn't have a choice. And it's nice to have an electric bill that's the same every single month, no matter how much I use my air conditioning or some of my other appliances. That's nice. I just don't, you and I probably agree, I just don't want to see a huge taxpayer subsidy for it necessarily. And I really don't want to see a huge subsidy going to Chinese companies to give me a solar power here. So maybe this is the best way to deal with it. Allow the U.S. companies to thrive, maybe give them a little bit of a boost, and then they'll be able to chug on their own while we still use natural gas and nuclear power and things like that. Bill, you and your group, you don't just invest money, you also speak up in favor of and out for basically free speech in this country and freedom of political affiliation. You and your group are part of a lawsuit that's connected to this against Airbnb. Can you tell me a little bit more about this lawsuit? Yeah, this is a bit of an unusual situation. As shareholders of corporations, we all
have the ability to submit a shareholder proposal, which is essentially a resolution we want the board to adopt or consider as the company goes about its business. In this case, we submitted a proposal. We were concerned about Airbnb suppressing services to conservatives in their matching algorithm. And the proposal, first time for me, was just ignored. We never heard a response. Heritage Foundation also submitted a proposal. They never heard a response. When we brought this to Airbnb's attention, it was still prior to the shareholder meeting, and they were not willing to still give us the opportunity to participate in that shareholder meeting. Lost in the mailroom was their excuse, although a lefty Connecticut benefits fund, their proposal did manage to make it in through the same mailroom. So we're seeking legal recourse, and we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, we've talked on this program about how some banks are discriminating against conservatives and things like that, so I'm not surprised, and good luck on that case. William Flaig, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great rest of your week.
Thank you. You too. Happy 4th of July.
All right. Coming up, why the plea deal in the Idaho college student mass murder case is bad news for the establishment media. David Brody and I will discuss Brian Kohberger and the true crime obsession in America when American Sunrise Early Edition comes right back. I'm sorry, everybody. I've got to find out who does the carpet in that Senate floor. That is an immaculate carpet. That is really well done. Well installed, well cleaned. Listen, folks, I'm trying to be positive here. The fact that the Senate's been up all night voting after amendment, watering down some of the good parts of this big, beautiful bill, all kinds of new divisions, these people staying up late. It's a nice carpet, so that's my positive comment. Welcome back to American Sunrise Early Edition. I'm Jake Novak. It's a Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to talk about something serious here because there are a lot of ramifications to a story that happened yesterday that you probably missed because it was buried under some of the other things going on. You might remember this guy, Brian Kohberger. This is the last time I want to say his name on television because I don't like giving him a lot of attention. But Brian Kohberger was the criminology grad student at Washington State University who in 2022 decided to kill 4 college students just over the border in Idaho in their off-campus home. No, he didn't know them. He was just trying to basically become a celebrity mass killer. He was obsessed with them. I don't know how he was accepted into a criminology program, considering his clearly and very public obsession with the BTK killer. Maybe you remember him, the bind, torture, and kill murderer. Anyway, he pleaded guilty yesterday. This ends any chance probably for a trial. There's a judge tomorrow in Idaho who can reject the guilty plea. I doubt that's going to happen. That would be very rare. Now, in return for his guilty plea, he's not going to get the death penalty, which, by the way, has understandably outraged the parents of at least one of the victims, who are very upset that the prosecutor didn't even consult with them before he offered this trade. Now, I believe, especially in cases like this, these most egregious cases, these cases where there's no doubt of guilt and there's DNA evidence up the wazoo, I am in favor of the death penalty in this country. The sad thing is, folks, if we just executed the people on death row where there's no doubt of guilt and they committed multiple crimes and torture was involved, we would be executing people one a week here for years. We have a big backlog. So don't get with me about all these people who maybe deserve some kind of clemency. That's a different story, okay? Not these folks. Anyway, so the trade-off here is that there won't be a trial. And that means that Kohberger, who committed these acts of violence and these horrible murders, won't get anywhere near the notoriety that he was hoping to get one day. He wanted to be one of those famous guys like Ted Bundy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That won't happen now because there won't be a trial. And by the way, David Brody, this is also a big loss for a lot of media outlets who were hoping for a big trial. And I think they have some complicity in this because they and those true crime podcasters, they are absolutely providing a motive, sadly, for people like this who know that they will become famous if they commit crimes like this. And now that there won't be a trial, I feel like maybe the next guy who wants to do this, maybe he won't happen. That's my take on this. It's one of the reasons why I'm sort of satisfied with this result, although I do believe the death penalty should have been considered by a jury and not by a prosecutor. What's your take on all this, David?
Well, I sure hope you're right. Not to date myself, but Dateline NBC, is that still around? But, you know, those type of shows are going to be sad that this type of case no longer will be in the headlines. Not to mention just the 24/7 media sensation with it, because this is what they live for, right? Let's go back to OJ, and then we just keep the Lindbergh baby. We just go back in history. So I agree with you that the sensationalism in the media, they're not going to be able to have this guy to kind of boost their ratings, if you will. The death penalty portion of this is interesting. Now, obviously, I am fully for the death penalty. Let's make that very clear. It's biblical, number one. However, having said that, sadly, I say the death penalty has really been on the demise recently. I mean, if you think, I say recently, this has been a trend now, over 20, 30 years or so. I mean, back in the 90s, there were executions, there were hundreds per year. Now, I mean, it's a trickle compared to what it was. So, I mean, I think it kind of leads to a larger question about the death penalty writ large and what the ramifications of it should be and when to use it. I'll just say this. I don't like the fact at all that this family was not consulted. I've got a real problem with that. But I guess that's a sidebar issue at this point to it all.
Yeah. Look, the death penalty, again, has always been supported by a majority of the American public every time they do a poll, ever since they started doing polling. If you have a problem with the death penalty in this country, I absolutely respect that, and we can have the debate. The problem is we never have the debate. There are these sneaky, underhanded ways that they stop the death penalty that are anti-democratic. This is something, if there was ever an issue, David, that the people should be deciding and not unelected bureaucrats, it's this one. This is a matter literally of life and death. And you know what? It's also important, not to make a joke out of it, it's also important that you spend the next 2 hours watching American Sunrise. I'll be back joining them in the 9 o'clock hour. David Brody, Dr. G and T Bates coming up. I'm Jake Novak. This has been Early Edition. I'll see you tomorrow at 7 a.m. Eastern.
American Sunrise is a great way to start your morning. Join us Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We've got the news of the day and some compelling interviews that you don't want to miss. Here's what you missed from yesterday.
I'm sorry, but I'm over the whole one big beautiful bill thing. The Senate, I've spent all night long, or senators spent all night long reading through the entire text of the bill. A vote is expected to happen as soon as today.
And it's going to go on for a while, probably maybe 24 hours, less than that, something like that. And this is where, Gina, we were talking on the call this morning before the show, the Christmas tree aspect of it. You brought that up. How much, I say Christmas tree, more like all of these amendments that they're going to try to add on, like a Christmas tree.
The CBO has got to go. I'm gonna make T-shirts and send them to everyone, because the CBO counts as deficit anytime you take away taxes. Right? So if you cut taxes, the CBO counts that, David, as deficit. That's not fair, because a lot of times when you cut taxes, you're actually building back the American economy.
I do think that it does hold, and we do get support. And if Tom Tillis and others want to decide they want to vote no on this deal, and they want to not seek re-election, I think that's also a good thing for the American people.
This is going to give an opportunity for some of the very fiscal Republicans, the one that's we're pushing back and kind of holding this up for the test vote that they had yesterday. It's going to give them an opportunity to air their grievances with what is included in the big, beautiful bill as well. So I think that's going to be the most interesting and important part that we need to be looking out for with the final vote.
Border Patrol officials made more arrests in California connected to a human smuggling ring from Iran. Officials say that they executed a search warrant in Los Angeles connected to national security threats, and later added that the location was repeatedly used to harbor illegals connected to terrorism.
They want to make as much money as they can. We see their close relationship with China when it comes to the production of fentanyl, and they're working with very other dangerous countries as well.
It almost feels like the mainstream media wants the Trump administration to apologize and to justify its attack on those Iranian nuclear facilities.
They had 3 main sites, and we knew they were going to have to either give them up. And I thought we could do it during negotiation, and we just about had it done. And then they said, we want enrichment. Enrichment doesn't mean like air conditioning, and it doesn't mean to jack up your car. Enrichment is a bad word.
Shame on the mainstream media for not giving the president his due when it came to carrying out these attacks.
Ahead on American Sunrise, the Senate showdown continues. You're looking at a live picture of the Senate right now as we get ready to find out what exactly will happen with the big, beautiful bill and budget reconciliation. Could we see any more surprises? I think the answer will be yes. We've got the latest. Plus, the Trump administration suing L.A. over its sanctuary city policies. Will this force L.A. to change its liberal stance? We have the latest. And in just hours, President Trump slated to attend the opening of the Florida Illegal Alien Detention Center. Oh, I'm sorry, did I bury the lead? It's better known as Alligator Alcatraz. What can we expect? Those stories, much more. Busy Tuesday, and we start right now on American Sunrise. Good morning, America.
Welcome to American Sunrise.
Whether it's culture,
We have breaking news to share with you.
politics,
President Trump is joining us live now from Florida.
we've got you covered.
This is what it looks like to be a patriot.
We have to protect the American family.
The American dream is still alive.
I'm David Brody.
I'm Terrence.
And I'm Dr. Gina. Good morning, everybody. I'm Dr. Gina. We are live from the Palm Beaches. Welcome to the show. Let's bring in David Brody. He's in Washington, D.C., and T. Bates in our Denver newsroom. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning, Gina. T.
Dr. Gina and David, good morning. We're obviously watching and will be watching throughout the next 2 hours, if not throughout the rest of the day, the happenings on Capitol Hill as the Senate has been dealing with this vote-a-rama on different amendments and that kind of thing to the one big, beautiful bill. It's been going on almost 24 hours at this point. Just want to give you some bullet points here. The Senate is set to reconvene officially in full at around 9 o'clock this morning. Earlier this morning, in fact, there was a record-breaking 45th Amendment or procedural vote. That, again, is a new record. And Vice President J.D. Vance is now on Capitol Hill, should he be called on to have to cast the tie-breaking vote. So there's a lot happening, and, David, all eyes are on Capitol Hill, specifically the Senate side.
Yeah, and specifically 4 senators. You've got Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski, specifically, that are the potential no votes. So let's just go through the math, right? 53 Republicans. You can lose 3 votes, and then J.D. Vance comes in and does the tiebreaker. You can't lose 4 votes. So Rand Paul and Tom Tillis, they're no's. So that means you can only lose 1 more. They may lose Murkowski. That would be 3. If they lose and J.D. Vance breaks the tie, and it's okay. But if they lose Susan Collins, that's 4, and that's the end of the bill. So this is a big deal. And the reason this vote-a-rama, Gina, has been going on for now, 19, 20-plus hours, it should have been done about 12 hours or so. The reason it keeps going on is because Republicans are delaying these votes because they're trying to convince Murkowski and Collins, and quite frankly, there's Senator Ron Johnson and a few others that I haven't gotten into that are still a little bit on the fence, and so they need more time. I mean, this is literally coming down to the wire, Gina.
Yeah, and the role of J.D. Vance is interesting here. He's actually sort of playing a whip role in addition to being that tiebreaker as well. He's there, twisting arms, having conversations, doing the thing. Interesting also, they are starting to throw out some little tidbits. One thing I noticed is that it looks like Senator Rand Paul could come around. They have shortened the debt ceiling that he was so uncomfortable with. That's a big one with him. That's a big one with me. I've been yelling about the debt ceiling, honestly, for more than a decade now. And right alongside him, that's one thing I think a lot of conservatives agree with him on. Why do we have this massive debt ceiling? Why do we even call it a ceiling? I always call it a circus tent, because it's not really a ceiling if you can just blow it up all the time, right? So I agree with him on that one. Apparently, there's been some compromise along those lines. Apparently, there's been some compromise with some things with Susan Collins as well. So this is going to proceed to be very interesting. Lots of tension, lots of drama as we go into the rest of this day.
If I could just quickly address the Rand Paul situation. So Rand Paul is kind of the fail-safe here. In other words, if they lose Collins and Murkowski and they're now at 4 and they can't get the bill, they can try to flip Rand Paul from a no to you yes. And the way to do that, as Gina, you were saying, Rand Paul would say, look, I'm not going for this huge, high, trillion-dollar debt ceiling, but he would be okay with a $500 billion, not trillion, billion-dollar debt ceiling, much lower. President Trump's not going to like that at all.
No.
He wants the larger number. But if that's the way to get Rand Paul on board and get this bill passed, that might happen. So that's something we're keeping an eye on as well.
Yeah, and then enter Elon Musk. He's out with some tweets about this one big, beautiful bill today. David says, oh, gosh. All right, so here you have it. Every member of Congress who campaigned on reducing government spending and then immediately voted for the biggest debt increase in history should hang their head in shame. and they will lose their primary next year if it's the last thing I do on this earth. That's Elon Musk again putting his fingerprint, or trying to put his fingerprint on these talks here. If this insane spending bill passes, the America Party will be formed the next day. Our country needs an alternative to the Democrat-Republican uniparty, so the people actually have a voice, he writes. President Trump also out with the Truth Social, saying Elon Musk knew long before he so strongly endorsed me for president that I was strongly against the EV mandate. It's ridiculous and was always a major part of my campaign. Electric cars are fine, but not everyone should be forced to own one. Elon may get more subsidy than any human being in history by far, and without subsidies, Elon would probably have to close up shop and head back home to South Africa. No more rocket launches, satellites, or electric car production, and our country would save a fortune. It goes on and on and on. Long story short here, the feud continues between President Trump and Elon Musk, and the one big beautiful bill, and their stances on it obviously differ, David.
Yeah, go ahead, Gino, because that last
Dr.
part.
G, go ahead. Okay.
Well, can I just say real quick, that last part of the tweet was interesting, too. He goes, maybe we should have Doge look into this in terms of what Elon Musk, I mean, that was like, whoa. I mean, okay, here we go. Part two. Gina, please.
I mean, that's a straight up threat and from the president. And you have two extremely powerful men dueling publicly again. It's just not where things need to be, unfortunately. It was fascinating to me, honestly, while things were as copacetic as they were between the two of them, because they are both so powerful, so opinionated, so alpha. This definitely makes it, the plot is thickening, Terrence. I guess that's what I have to say about that.
Absolutely.
Meanwhile, we have President Trump. He is hopping, it looks like, in Marine One to depart for Florida, of course, for the big Alligator Alley build. So let's take a look. I guess we're not
heading from one. I've been working on this all night. He's heading from one swamp to another this morning.
Nice.
I'm proud of myself on that. I've been working on that all night. You're going to hear it throughout the next. I came up with it on my. Seriously, I was half asleep and I was thinking about, okay, I've got to write headlines in the morning. And that popped into my mind. And rather than just getting up and writing it down, I was thinking about it all night. So you're going to hear that over the next couple of hours. Anyway, Dr. Gina, would you give us our Bible verse?
I'd love to. Today's Bible verse is from Psalm 37:4. Delight yourself also in the Lord, and he shall give you the desires of your heart. All right. The Senate continues working on the budget reconciliation bill ahead of a final vote expected soon. It narrowly advanced to this stage after just 2 GOP senators voted against it. Here's what White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt had to say about the bill. Take a listen.
This is one of the most fiscally conservative pieces of legislation that has ever made its way through Capitol Hill. There's $2 trillion in mandatory savings in this bill. And not only that, the projected growth that this bill will bring to our economy. It will be an economic boom. The Council of Economic Advisors has an analysis that shows that the bill will generate $4.1 trillion in economic growth. And it will cut taxes, putting more money back into the American people's pockets. That's why this president wants this bill to pass. And I know he's busy working the phones and doing what he needs to do today to make it happen. So,
for more, let's bring in Missouri Congressman Mark Alford. Congressman, good morning. Thanks for being with us. Lots of drama over in your end of the swamp. Congressman, do you see this being done by the sort of arbitrary but understandable July 4th deadline that the president has set?
Well, I certainly hope so. Independence Day at the White House could be quite momentous if President Trump were to sign this into law. I understand the B-2 pilots from Whiteman are going to be there at the White House. I'm hoping to be there if I'm still in Washington. But look, the president is on a roll here, a roll for America, a roll for peace around the world. And we've got to get this done. We've got to get over the finish line. I don't know what the Senate's problem is. I think a lot of it has to do with Chuck Schumer trying to throw a wrench in everything. And some other people with, on the Republican side that have some legitimate concerns. I've got a concern that they stripped the Medicaid, doing away with Medicaid for illegal aliens out. Why? Right. Who in the world, I don't care what side of the fence you're on, wants illegal aliens to have 1.4 million of them to have Medicaid coverage. It just doesn't make sense. We've got to get our spending under control. But on the flip side of this, guys, if we don't get this done, I've been saying this, you've heard it from every Republican, every conservative telling the truth out there to the American people. If we don't get this done, it's going to be the largest tax increase in U.S. history. And so we cannot let the enemy be the perfect the perfect be the enemy of the good in this fight, and we've got to get this over the finish line.
All right, Congressman, if you'll stand by very quickly, President Trump, as we just saw a little while ago, left the White House, and he's headed for that new illegal alien detention facility in Florida. It's known as Alligator Alcatraz. RAV Chief White House correspondent Brian Glenn is actually traveling with President Trump. He is joining us now live from Joint Base Andrews. Brian, can you hear us?
Right now.
All right, there's Brian. And again, ladies and gentlemen, this is live television. So, yes, I can hear you, Brian. I know it's live television. You're getting ready to board Air Force One. Take it away. What's the latest there?
Okay, so in a few minutes from now, President Trump is going to land right behind me on Marine One. We're going to then get on Air Force One, make our way down to Alligator Alcatraz. That is that new detention center that they're building there in South Florida. He's going to participate in a kind of a walk around the facility. He's also going to participate in a round table discussion about this facility, and then he's going to make his way back to the White House at around 2:30 this afternoon. But we should have President Trump rolling up here momentarily. But, you know, this is one of the things that he's promised to do as far as the immigration, the ICE, really getting some of the hardened criminals out of our country. And there's no better place to put them in South Florida, Terrence, surrounded by alligators, perhaps vipers, throw in some snakes, and you've got a pretty secure place there.
And put in mosquitoes just for good measure. All right, Brian Glenn reporting for us this morning there at Andrews. Brian, you have safe travels, and we'll try to check in with you later on here. Let's get back to Congressman Alford, who is standing by. Is he still standing by, guys? All right, there he is. I see Congressman. Hey, Congressman. First of all, thank you for allowing us to go over to Joint Base Andrews as the president is getting ready to depart, heading to Florida, which I think brings us back full circle to this one big, beautiful bill, because there's a lot of discussion between you and your colleagues and others as we watch all of this unfold in the Senate about the tax cuts that would be reinstalled or would continue if this bill doesn't pass. But this bill passing is also crucial for securing our nation's border and funding President Trump's immigration policies. That's something that we talked about initially, but I think that conversation has somewhat gone to the wayside, Congressman.
Yeah, that's right, Terrence. First off, I don't mind at all deferring to Brian Glenn. Secondly, this bill does finish the wall. It secures the border with the wall, and it provides bonuses and pay raises to border security, which they have not gotten the respect they deserve, especially under Alejandro Mayorkas and President Biden. And so we've got to get this done for the American people. I'm so glad this whole Alligator Alcatraz issue is triggering the left. You can see it in their eyes. They are freaking out that the President of the United States, along with Governor DeSantis in Florida, are building a place to take illegal aliens until we can get them deported. Look, they didn't like Gitmo. We are putting some money into Gitmo as well, Guantanamo Bay, to house illegals there. But our prison system is broken in the United States of America. I'm on the appropriations subcommittee that oversees the prison system. We've got real problems with deteriorating conditions in our prisons. And we were looking at some places around different prisons where we have empty beds in these dilapidated sections that we could possibly put these illegals until we get them deported. That wasn't going to work out. So this is a great alternative to that. It's going to provide a secure location where if you're an illegal and you want to go on the run, on the lam, you can end up a meal for an alligator.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit more about the big, beautiful bill that's kind of becoming a headache here, obviously, in the Senate. And we haven't even gotten it back to the House yet. And enter you and your colleagues. I've already seen that Chip Roy says he's a no. Eric Burleson, who's been on the show many times, he's a no. There's others that are known. I'm trying to think of Andy Harris as well. There's others.
Freedom Caucus.
So
yeah.
The Freedom Caucus folks. So, I mean, can we just be like fully honest here, which I guess we always are, which is there's no way that Mike Johnson is going to let this bill fail in the House. In other words, you can get 2, 3, whatever no's that he needs, 4, that's fine. Let those people vote no. But he's got to eventually get this bill passed. I mean, there's just no way that it can fail at this point, or y'all might want to just pack it up and go home.
Yeah, I think we need this. This isn't just for the President of the United States. This is for Congress. This is for America. Here's the problem, though. Excuse me, losing my voice. Yeah. When this bill leaves the Senate, it comes back over to the House. And if we make any changes to it, then we've got to vote on that again. And then what do? The Senate, we've got to have some sort of conference with the Senate to come out with a bill that we both agree on. And so that puts it well past the July 4th arbitrary deadline that the president has set, and us in Congress. Look, I've said all along, if we don't have deadlines, we don't get stuff done in the U.S. House of Representatives. So I think the deadline was a good deadline. I don't know how feasible it is at this point, but we will keep charging towards that goal.
Yeah.
Congressman, I really want to ask I'm sorry, Terrence. I really want to ask.
No, go ahead.
I really want to understand for the American people, because I look at our chat and they say really logical things like, why do we need $1 trillion debt ceiling? Why do we need that? Why is that a thing? When you have, the president that everyone loves and trusts, that we've listened to this whole entire time, that we've all fought for a decade or more, you really have to try to understand why the process is so complicated, why this debt ceiling needs to be so high, why we can't cut more spending. Help us just understand those basics, because I think that's the part that Elon doesn't understand, frankly.
Well, two parts to this, Gina, and great question. President Trump wants to do away with the debt ceiling altogether. He doesn't believe we should have a debt ceiling. It puts too much restriction on what we need to do in America to grow our way out of this debt that we're in. And yes, we can grow. We will grow. We're not going to grow our way out if we don't pass this bill, number one, because it's going to be the largest tax increase in U.S. history. The tariffs are working. That's bringing extra revenue in. But to get the economy churning again, to get the interest rates down, it's going to take this bill to pass. If not, it's going to be, I don't even want to think about it. The other side of the issue really is what we're spending our money on. So, 30, 40 years ago, a lot less was spent on mandatory spending. And even before COVID, we spent a lot less. I'm talking about Social Security and Medicare. No one wants to address those, especially if you're in the U.S. House of Representatives, get elected every 2 years. Once you start talking about it, you don't get reelected, you don't come back, we don't keep the majority. So no one wants to touch that. Eventually, we're going to have to find some solutions to mandatory spending, which is about 76% of our spending. You can nibble around the edges, okay, on the discretionary spending, as we call it. We're not cutting defense. We've got to grow our defense to keep ahead of the crazy wackos like Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping and the mullahs in Iran. But we have to make cuts to the programs where we can in discretionary, but we're going to have to take a look. Someone is going to have to take a look at some time, at some point in our history, how do we address Social Security to keep it alive for those who really need it, but to also start curbing our spending in these areas. I don't have the solution to that. We're not going to figure it out in the segment that I'm on today, but someone eventually is going to have to start talking about it.
Congressman, from the outside looking in, it's clear to me that the pressure is on for you and your colleagues in the House, as well as in the Senate, to get this bill passed at all costs. Now, having said all of that, will ideological differences or concerns within the bill give way to the pressure, if you will, to pass this bill and get it on President Trump's desk? Because otherwise it's a black eye for Republicans in Congress and on Capitol Hill?
Well, look, we have one of the greatest deal makers in the world, in world history, sitting behind the Resolute desk, now on Marine One, down to get on Air Force One. But my point is, if it were any other person, I'd say give it up. We've got Donald Trump now, who's able to, in his own special way, sell people on the idea that America should be first, and that this is a way to make America first, and that nothing is going to be perfect in a bill. We get that. But hey, this doesn't have to be the last reconciliation package either. We can come back for a second and third bite at the apple with even more reforms and reconciliation, maybe with a new Senate parliamentarian, which has been the problem. I mean, she's the one who, through the Byrd Rule issue, stripped the provision out to bar illegal aliens from getting Medicaid coverage. And I'm pretty ticked about that. There's a lot of other issues that this parliamentarian stuck her nose into, and I think ruled the wrong way. And I think John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader, needs to get a new parliamentarian, but can't do it now. Let's wait till this one's done and then address that issue.
Congressman, you talked about the president being the deal maker, the big deal maker. He actually spoke on the South Lawn just a little while ago. Guys, can we take that? All right, there he is walking around. Let's listen in. All right, apparently we're not able to hear much there, but the president... Yeah, we're still not even able to hear much there. Again, ladies and gentlemen, this is live television. It's all kind of happening as we're on the air here. President Trump heading to Alligator Alcatraz, which is in Florida. It's a new immigration detention center, but obviously high on his mind. And I'm sure even aboard Air Force One, he's going to be watching the happenings there on the Senate side of Capitol Hill as the Senate is set to reconvene about 9 o'clock this morning to continue its debate and vote on the one big beautiful bill. Congressman, one last word from you, sir.
Sure. Look, one of the things we were going to talk about today, I don't think we had time for, is the patriotism in America, the level that's fallen. I sent you all a text, Terrence, I need to get your cell phone number, about a speech that I wrote 3 years ago when I was running for Congress called I Believe in America. We've got to rebuild patriotism in America, and that's one of my goals. I've told President Trump this. I have hope for America. And I have more hope now that he's president than I've had in any time in my lifetime. We've seen that with a resurgence in military recruitment. Part of that is Pete Hegseth being a great Secretary of Defense. But we've got to renew our hope in America. Let's get this bill passed. This is the first step in making America great again. Let's do it.
Congressman Mark Alford, great to have you on the show.
Your poem
Thanks for
was
staying with us.
beautiful, by the way. Thank you for sending that. You know, I don't get poetry very often before 8 o'clock in the morning, so it was a great day.
It was wonderful.
I'm glad you don't have my number because I'd have thought you were flirting with me if you sent me poetry early in the morning.
No.
All right.
It was
Take
great.
care, guys.
It was great. Thank you so much. I was busy.
Sorry for my cough, too.
Read the whole thing. All right, Congressman,
Thanks,
thank you. For more, let's bring in the president of the National Border Patrol Council. That would be Paul Perez. And by the way, the reason we're bringing in Paul is because Gina and Terrence, obviously, the big, beautiful bill has a lot of border funding in it. We need to get the latest on that. So, Paul Perez, thanks for being here. You know, I'm curious to get your thoughts about the fight that we mentioned earlier in the show. We teased it about Los Angeles and the federal government because there's a fight between the feds and the sanctuary cities. But also, I'm curious to get your take about the big, beautiful bill that we've been talking about, because it's going to come down to the wire this week in Congress. Now, we should point out that inside that bill is more than $12 billion for about 18,000 or so new ICE and Border Patrol personnel, which is driving AOC and the left crazy. But I'm curious to get your take, because the truth of the matter is that there's a lot of stuff inside this bill that's really not good. Let's be honest. Like, for example, illegal immigrants still getting Medicaid. That's a problem, big problem. But I'm curious to get your take, because there's some stuff that is actually very good in the bill.
Yeah, so I can tell you, the 28 years that I've been doing this job on the front lines, this is going to be the biggest expenditure on border security funding that we've ever seen. It's going to get us the tools and resources we need. It's going to get us additional manpower. And it's something that, because of what Biden did in his administration, we sorely need. During President Trump's first term in office, he did everything that he needed to do to give America a secure border, and he left President Biden a secure border, and all he had to do was nothing. And what he did in those 4 years was completely decimate what we had as far as a controlled border. Now, because of President Trump's policies, in just less than 5 months, we've been able to gain good control of the border, but we're going to need the tools and resources that the big, beautiful bill provides to make sure that we have operational control once and for all.
All right, here's President Trump on the South Lawn, guys. Let's listen, and I think we've got audio now.
One at a time, or are you just going to try again?
I think we're going to get there. It's tough. We're trying to break it down so it's really good for the country. Trying to get a lot for everybody, and it's a big bill. And smaller bills would have been easy, but they wouldn't have been as good. I think it's going to do okay.
And with the Alligator Alcatraz, is the idea that if some illegal immigrants escape, they just get eaten by an alligator or a snake or something?
I guess that's the concept. This is not a nice business. I guess that's the concept. If snakes are fast, but alligators are, but we're going to teach them how to run away from an alligator, okay? If they escape prison, how to run away. Don't run in a straight line. Run like this. And you know what? Your chances go up about 1%. Okay? Not a good thing.
When are you going to talk to Netanyahu about next Monday?
Oh, he's coming here. We're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to talk about the great success we had. I mean, we had an incredible, in Iran, we had an incredible success, like really nobody's had in many, many years. That was a precision war strike, and the word obliteration can now be used because the Atomic Energy Commission said you can't even get into the place. It was demolished. It was really demolished. It was a great, brilliant strike, and how to go forward. We're also going to talk about Gaza. We want to get the rest. We got a lot of hostages back, but we're going to talk about Gaza. Enthusiasm, as you know. And I think in the end, we're going to have it. What do you think, Caroline? Yeah, I think
What do you think about pro-Ron Mamdani having such a hard time condemning the phrase globalized intifada?
I think he's terrible. He's a communist. The last thing we need is a communist. I said there will never be socialism in the United States. Now we have a communist. So I think he's bad news. And I think we're going to have a lot of fun with him, watching him, because he has to come right to this building to get his money. And don't worry, he's not going to run away with anything. I think he's frankly, I've heard he's a total nut job. I think the people of New York are crazy. If they go this route, I think they're crazy. We will have a communist for the first time, really, a pure, true communist. He wants to operate the grocery stores, the department stores. What about the people that are there? I think it's crazy.
What happened to Elon Musk?
Who?
What happened to Elon Musk?
Nothing. No, he's upset that he's losing his EV mandate, and he's very upset about things, but he could lose a lot more than that. I can tell you right now. Hey, Elon can lose a lot more than that. We hope it's going to happen, and we're looking forward to happen sometime next week. We want to get our hostages back. We want to get the hostages back.
What if the big, beautiful bill doesn't pass? You have to go through item by item by item and pass this stuff one at a time, or are you just going to try again?
I think we're going to get there. It's tough. We're trying to break it down so it's really good for the country. Trying to get a lot for everybody, and it's a big bill. And smaller bills would have been easy, but they wouldn't have been as good. I think it's going to do okay.
And with the Alligator Alcatraz, is the idea that if some illegal immigrants escape, they just get eaten by an alligator or a snake or something?
I guess that's the concept. This is not a nice business. I guess that's the concept.
That was President Trump talking on the South Lawn before boarding Marine One and then getting over to Andrews Air Force Base, or what's formerly known as Andrews Air Force Base. Now it's Joint Base Andrews, and getting on Air Force One, heading to Alligator Alcatraz in Florida. A lot to take in. It's a busy day, Dr. Gina, but I think one of the highlights is that President Trump's big, beautiful bill is being debated, and he is continuing his work, whether it gets passed or not.
Right. It's become a big, beautiful bill in peril, and there's a lot of talk behind the scenes. Tense moments, I think, inside the swamp today, Terrence, and we'll just have to keep following it.
You know, there are a couple of things. First of all, he's wearing the Gulf of America hat. I thought that was interesting. Good for him. He also said at the top, as I'm looking here, and we didn't hear this sound because we took it a little bit after that, but he said, "Good morning to everybody." And then he said, quote, "We're going out to Alligator Alcatraz. It's an East Coast version. Should be very exciting. And then I'll be back here fighting for the bill." He knows there's a fight on his hands, no doubt about it. I thought it was interesting that he said smaller bills would have been easier, but not as good. You wonder if there's now some second guessing going on. I always wondered all along if the smaller bills might have been the way to go, because this way you don't get all of this, Gina, you were saying, the Christmas tree crap in the bill, and you don't get one big bill. You know what that makes me think of? It makes me think of omnibus. It makes me think of, let's put all the crap inside the bill. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing some crap inside the big, beautiful bill. And this was the reason why some wanted to do two smaller bills. Look, it is what it is. Here we are.
Well, at the moment, this one big, beautiful bill is turning out to be one big behind headache. We'll, of course, have more coverage here throughout the morning, but now we do have to take a break. It's been a long first part of the show. We're back in a moment.
Charlotte, North Carolina. Welcome back to American Sunrise. I'm Dr. G. Thanks for joining us. It is time now for today's health news. It is sponsored, of course, by the Wellness Company. And under the microscope today, some unexpected health benefits about the controversial seed oils. You've been hearing a lot about this. Thank you, RFK, for bringing this to the forefront. So many of us have been talking about this for so long. Researchers at Indiana University School of Public Health reports that these oils have a compound, we know this, called linoleic acid. This is common in omega-6 fatty acids, and it can reportedly help lower the risk of heart disease and type 2 diabetes. A study showed that higher linoleic acid in plasma came with lower levels of biomarkers for cardiometabolic risk, notably reducing inflammation. Higher levels of this compound also showed lower levels of glucose and insulin. Is the funniest thing, you know, everything you read now, you read the back. Now, so this is saying benefits of seed oils. I don't know about that. I want to see some more studies because all I'm hearing these days are how bad seed oils are. I've started cooking exclusively in beef tallow and butter. I love butter too. And go a little Paula Deen on you here and tell you we just need more butter. That's what we need. Anyway, there's a new administration in Washington, D.C. They brought a lot of positive changes when it comes to fixing our broken healthcare system. The reality, though, is there's only so much the government can do. And if we really want to make America healthy again, that has to start at home with each and every one of us. That's where the Wellness Company comes in. You see and hear from their doctors all the time on this network, and you know that their products are the gold standard when it comes to keeping you and your family safe and healthy. The Wellness Company gives you the opportunity to make sure you're prepared for whatever happens with their series of prescription med kits. These kits contain an assortment of life-saving medications and a guidebook to tell you how to use the meds in the kit. Additionally, Wellness Company offers a variety of products from parasite cleanses, methylene blue, weight loss, so much more. These can help you stay healthy and happy and live a longer, more satisfying life. Make America healthy again. Starts at home. Do your part. Protect the health of yourself and your family. Go to twc.health/RAV today. Give it an order. That's twc.health/RAV. Use the promo code RAV. That'll save you 10%. For more on the health of America, let's bring in the Chief of Maternal and Prenatal Health for the Wellness Company, Dr. James Thorpe. Always a blessing to have you, Dr. Thorpe. The new COVID variant has a nasty new symptom that has led the media to dub it as the razor blade throat variant. Tell us a little bit about this.
Yes, there is a new variant, NB 1.8.1. And, you know, this is, I think it's overblown. I think it's really trying to scare the Americans, you know, and get them under control again. I don't think
go get the vaccine, right, Dr. Thorpe? That's what they're saying.
Yeah, it's this new variant, nicknamed Nimbus. But quite frankly, it is important to maintain your health. Keep your vitamin D levels up. Keep your medical kits on board at home. Have some ivermectin and some hydroxychloroquine available in every home. You know, as you know, you can't get these stuff in many local pharmacies.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Well, it feels a little coincidental at a time when pharmaceutical profits in some cases are dropping and COVID vaccine boosters are at an all-time low that this new scary-sounding variant is out there. Do you think pharmaceutical companies will continue this as I mean this idea? Because I hear the public service announcements come up now on my radio or television, Dr. Thorpe, and I just laugh. I'm like, this just looks like such a money grab now. We've won the PR side of this battle, but what are they going to do in response? I guess that's the big question.
Well, I think they tried to do it with the airborne in the H5N1, right? And we got out ahead of them. You, Dr. Gina, and the Wellness Company, we got out ahead of this, and it turned into a big nothing burger, right? Mm-hmm. So what they're doing, they're losing cash. They're losing massive profits. Every time I look at Pfizer and their ads, Dr. Gina, I want to vomit. Because the American people have to remember that they had the largest fraud case in the history of medicine brought against them. They paid out $2.2 billion in 2008. So let that sink in. Mm-hmm. Why in the world, dear Lord, why would the American people let this, Scott Gottlieb, this fascist, this liar, this fraudulent individual that goes between the CDC and now is on the board of Pfizer. This has to stop. Direct consumer advertising has to stop. And, yes, the American people know it, but I'm sick and tired of these vaccines being pushed on America. It makes me sick to see Bobby gaslighted by these Senator Blumenthal, as I was gaslighted in testifying in the United States Senate, and Dr. Peter McCullough and others just 4 weeks ago today. This has to stop. Blumenthal is a liar, and the rest of these congressmen that are paid off and pushing this false narrative, I don't even think they believe it themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just yesterday I saw RFK coming out and saying that actually the cases of autism increased dramatically with certain childhood vaccines. I mean, this is something that has long been suspected. I've told the story many times of me just sitting in my husband's Senate office in Missouri doing, constituent relations, and moms and dads coming through desperately saying my child was perfectly fine until I gave them the X vaccine. In this case, I believe it was, I don't want to misquote which one it was that he was talking about yesterday. What do you have to say about this?
I'll tell you, I'm in Southwest Missouri right now at an undisclosed location, a very large hospital doing high-risk obstetrics. I had 3 patients yesterday. Same thing. Sudden onset, complete change in their child after the vaccine. And, these people are waking up. And for doctors and legislatures and physicians to gaslight these patients, that is such an awful breach. This is so offensive to our Creator, and they will be judged for this. They continue to push these poisons for profit, and it's absolutely an abomination. I hate to see Bobby Kennedy getting gaslit. He says he's on Tucker Carlson, and what does he says? Well, Tucker asks him, "What's your opinion on the vaccines and autism?" And he says, "Well, my opinion is irrelevant." I mean, this is how horribly he's attacked from every which side, that he can't speak what he knows to be true, or there'll be an onset of attacks, maybe even physical and personal attacks on him. So I feel for him. Bobby, stay strong and courageous.
Well, I'll tell you, I was on a phone call yesterday with all of the MAHA people out there. I brought my own team of influencers and the people I knew in media. We are going to have his back, Dr. Thorpe, on all of this stuff. I wanted to say, I looked it up while we were talking. It was my son, Bo Loudon, that posted it, actually. And it was a CDC cover-up revealing that 1,135% increase in autism from the hepatitis B vaccine. These are the words, and that was in that Tucker interview that you're talking about. Dr. James Thorpe from the Wellness Company, we thank you. We thank the Wellness Company for continuing to bring us the unvarnished truth that we really can't get anyplace else, along with the medical kits that can save us from the Rockefeller medicine system. Thank you so much for being with us. Keep saving lives.
Thanks, Dr. Gina. Have a blessed 4th of July.
You too. God bless you, my friend. Coming up, Southern states are coming together to reform higher education. Will the efforts work? We assess next on American Sunrise.
It's almost Independence Day, and all of America will be celebrating. But here in Real America's Voice, we want to celebrate you. Every day from June 30th through July 4th, we're giving away a handcrafted, hand-painted hardwood flag to one lucky RAV viewer. These beautiful flags come from YourAmericanFlagStore.com, where 10% of every purchase goes to Your American Flag Foundation. Scan the QR code to opt in for your chance to win and receive future RAV promotions from our hearts for your home. Use code RAV for free shipping.
And welcome back, everybody, to American Sunrise. You know that feeling when your coffee actually does what it's supposed to do? Clears your head, it lifts your energy, it doesn't leave you crashing an hour later. Well, that's what good coffee is supposed to feel like. And that's what you get with 1775 coffee. The coffee is organic, single origin, high altitude, small batch roasted. That means no toxins, no acidity, no jitters, just smooth, clean coffee that fuels your day without weighing you down. And right now, by the way, they are offering a free starter kit. You get 3 bags of premium coffee plus exclusive coffee merch. I love saying merch, I sound so hip. Including a matte black tumbler, a frother, a gold scoop, or reusable K-cup filter. So here's the deal. You pay for 2 bags of coffee, and then 1775 covers the rest. Whether you drink whole bean, ground coffee, or K-cup pods, you choose your option. This means you're paying less than $1 a cup. I was going to say $1,000 a cup. Yeah, that'd be kind of that'd be a problem. But it's less than $1 a cup for coffee quality that you won't find in most stores. So here's what you do. You head to 1775coffee.com/Rav and grab your starter kit while the offer is still available. And by the way, let me just say, here it is. I've got it. Oh, I don't want to put my fingers over the 1775 coffee. We get this and the coffee. It's phenomenal. As a matter of fact, I'm flying right now. Let's send it over to Emily. Emily, to you.
All right, David, you are certainly caffeinated this morning. So now it is time to stay awake, not woke. And who is awake today? Concerned educators and residents of southern states. They're banding together to set up their own accrediting body for higher education. Florida, Texas, Georgia, both Carolinas, and Tennessee. They've all set up a commission for public higher education, aiming to offer high quality, efficient, and academic excellence. The states say this is in response to woke ideology on various college campuses. Here's what Florida Governor Ron DeSantis had to say. Take a listen.
We are, in fact, establishing a new accreditor for higher education, and we're calling it the Commission for Public Higher Education. So this endeavor will introduce a new accreditor into the marketplace. It'll upend the monopoly of the woke accreditation cartels, and it will provide institutions with an alternative that focuses on student achievement rather than the ideological fads that have so permeated those accrediting bodies over the year. Now, this commission is a consortium of higher education systems from several states offering a new accreditation model. And again, we care about student achievement. We care about measurable outcomes. We care about efficiency. We care about pursuing truth. We care about preparing our students to be citizens of our republic.
All right, we want to know what you think. Let us know on Rumble or Getter. Hop on and let your voice be heard. Coming up, the left has continued to go after Christians, but are the attacks working? We dissect next on American Sunrise.
created the heaven and the earth.
Welcome back to American Sunrise. It is now time for our moment of faith, brought to us by Lee Greenwood and the God Bless the USA Bible. In focus today, new anti-Christian attacks that are backfiring. The Blaze lays it all out in this new piece, which claims the left's new favorite target has become Christian nationalism. They're just trying to silence Christians who don't go along with the left-wing agenda. They actually cited the case in Minnesota where a man of faith, whose name is Vance Bolter, was accused of killing a state lawmaker and injuring another. The legacy media seized on that narrative of the background of this alleged shooter as a preacher. For more, let's bring in pastor, author, and filmmaker CL Bryant. Pastor Bryant, good to see you, sir.
Thank you so much, Terrence. Glad to be with you.
So I'd like to take a step back. First of all, I think to kind of set the platform for this conversation, do you see there being an attack on faith in this country at this point?
Oh, certainly there is an attack on faith, and we should expect that as Christians. Matthew 24, and I believe it's 12, that says that because iniquity shall abound, the hearts of many shall wax cold. And that's what we're seeing now. And it is an attack on Christianity. And I want to say this about the nationalism of Christians. I love America more than any other nation on the face of this earth. Everything I love is here. And so my love of God and country is here. So I guess that makes me a nationalist in the sense of the word. And I'm certainly a Christian, and I thank God for that. And so it is the common sense of our identity in this country that is under attack as well, Terrence. It's our identity.
You know, words are powerful, and I think sometimes you can redefine a word. Christian nationalism, when I look at that term, I kind of see it with pride as a Christian, because I think there should be a nationalism. There should be this community of Christians that come together no matter where you are and have a nationalistic idea, have this pride, if you will.
And absolutely. And if we lose that in our young people, if our young people are brainwashed and that's bleached out of them, then America will truly go away. And we are to occupy until Christ comes. And he has claimed a great victory for us over death, hell, and the grave. And he has given us the strength to suffer the tribulations and endure the tribulations that this life does bring to us. And so we must occupy, we must hold the ground until he comes, and we must expect also the slings and arrows that come along with being a Christian. It's not a journey for anyone who is faint of heart. It is one who is a follower of Christ, and he was bold in every aspect of himself, even to the resurrection from the dead.
And that's why our Bible says you should gird yourself in the whole armor of God. So I'm curious to get your perspective. I was reading the other day, and this point struck me, that the best way to fight back against these current attacks is to be more Christ-like in our community, to really stand up and to embody the values of Christ in our everyday interactions. Speak to that. How do you see that?
It is important that we be Christians and not act like Christians. Actors act like Christians, but human beings who are blood-bought in Jesus Christ and are disciples of Christ are individuals within themselves. And every one of us is to let that individual light shine, and that men will see what God has done for you and glorify him for what he has done. But now what we have turned it into is look at me type of thing, look at what I do type of thing, instead of what I am doing to advance the kingdom of God. Christians must come back home to that type of principle. It's love your neighbor truly as yourself, but defend the land, the property that God has given to us as Americans, because it is a land that has been bought with blood. And I want to wish everyone a very happy Independence Day. this coming 4th of July.
Pastor Bryant, we'll have to leave the conversation there. You gave us a word, though, on this Tuesday morning. We appreciate it.
God bless you.
Bless you as well, my friend. We're back with the second hour of American Sunrise in 2 minutes.
Introducing the limited edition God Bless the USA Bible, inspired by Lee Greenwood's hit song and the most recognized patriotic anthem in America, God Bless the USA. The God Bless the USA large print leather-bound King James Bible also contains America's founding documents, the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, and the Pledge of Allegiance, along with a handwritten chorus to Lee Greenwood's song, God Bless the USA. With its large print and slim design, this Bible invites you to explore God's Word anywhere, anytime. The God Bless the USA Bible makes the perfect gift and cherished family heirloom keepsake to pass on to future generations. Designed for an easy reading experience in the trusted King James Version translation, this large print Bible is perfect to take to church, Bible study, work, and for traveling. Order yours today at GodBlessTheUSABible.com.
Coming up on the second hour of American Sunrise, Capitol Hill, Trump's big beautiful bill, and the mad dash to get it to the president's desk by July 4th. The question at this hour, what are the odds that it's delivered by the deadline? We have a quick moving story and the very latest ahead. Also, keep America safe again. President Trump headed down to Florida today, not to stop at Mar-a-Lago, but to take a tour of the new Alligator Alcatraz for illegals. That biting story is ahead. And some of Idaho's finest ambush, 2 murdered in cold blood. It's a travesty. They were lured into fighting a fire to save others. The details on this disturbing story and the shooter is ahead as the second hour of American Sunrise starts right now. Good morning, America.
Welcome to American Sunrise.
Whether it's culture,
we have breaking news to share with you.
Politics.
President Trump is joining us live now from Florida.
We've got you covered.
This is what it looks like to be a patriot.
We have to protect the American family.
The American dream is still alive.
I'm David Brody.
I'm Terrence.
And I'm Dr. Gina.
Welcome back, everybody, to the second hour of American Sunrise. I'm David Brody, coming to you from the deep state. That is D.C., where we can't get anything done up here. Let's bring in Dr. G in West Palm and T. Bates in our Denver newsroom. Look, good morning to both of you. And, you know, we've been talking about the big, beautiful bill and all of the machinations going on in Congress at this hour, literally. But the sidebar, which is kind of becoming the main attraction, sadly now, is President Trump and Elon Musk, which we also talked about. They are now in round 2 of this war. And we mentioned that at the top. But this, I want to read something real quick. President Trump, when we showed him some of his comments coming out of the White House this morning before he left for Florida, here are some comments he made right before that. So a reporter had asked him specifically, are you going to deport Elon Musk, was the question. And Trump said, quote, and he wasn't smiling when he said it, quote, we'll have to take a look. We might have to put Doge on Elon. You know what Doge is, the monster that might have to go back and eat Elon. Wouldn't that be terrible? He gets a lot of subsidies. Meanwhile, Elon Musk, Gina, is saying that he's going to back Tom Massey in his Republican primary fight. Of course, Trump is going against Massey. So look, this round 2 is far worse than round 1, Gina.
I detest this whole thing. It's everything wrong with politics. You know, I know for some people, they're like, ooh, popcorn, this is exciting. For me, this is what Republicans do. And I looked back at my old posts on Twitter, David. For the first time, I posted about how I hate that when Republicans have any success, we circle fire while they circle wagons every single time. The first time I tweeted that was in 2017. So that tells you, like, this is something that has been on the minds of people in the Tea Party, the people in MAGA for such a long time. And this is one of those things that it's so predictable. Terrence, it's so predictable. Like, let's hold it together, folks. Let's hold it together because we have so much more in common to fight for, right? We mostly, if you look at what most of us agree on, it's about 90% of what we believe, Terrence.
Yeah, I'm really not this self-involved, Dr. Gina, but I believe I said early on that I was cautiously optimistic about the relationship between President Trump and Elon Musk, and that I thought it was going to be a challenge for them to coexist. And now my thoughts are coming true. They're not working together, but you've got two personalities that are now at odds. And I just think the country doesn't benefit, and it's a sad state of affairs. But let's get to the headlines of the day, because I could go on for another 20 minutes on that. President Trump is actually leaving the D.C. swamp today, headed to the real swamp of the Florida Everglades. He's going to be braving mosquitoes and humidity for the opening of a new temporary migrant detention center. This is the president leaving the White House about an hour ago, getting on Marine Force One. Florida's new compound of heavy-duty tents, trailers, and temporary buildings will turn an old airfield in the Big Cypress National Preserve into a holding site for people in this country illegally who are in the deportation process.
The facility is in the heart of the Everglades and will be informally known as Alligator Alcatraz. There is only one road leading in, and the only way out is a one-way flight. It is isolated and surrounded by dangerous wildlife and unforgiving terrain. The facility will have up to 5,000 beds to house, process, and deport criminal illegal aliens.
Florida State Attorney General describes the site as perfect for holding illegal immigrants because, quote, if people get out, there's not much waiting for them other than alligators and pythons. By the way, since President Trump took office, at least 17,000 people have reportedly been placed in federal immigration detention. The face-off between the Trump administration and Harvard University continues as the administration's investigation into the university finds that Harvard failed to protect Jewish students from harassment. A federal task force sent the Ivy League school a letter on Monday saying that it violated civil rights laws requiring colleges to protect students from discrimination based on race or national origin. Investigators found that Harvard was a, quote, willful participant in anti-Semitic harassment of Jewish students, faculty, and staff. The letter goes on to say, quote, failure to institute adequate changes immediately will result in the loss of all federal financial resources and continue to affect Harvard's relationship with the federal government. This is the latest intensification in the White House's battle with Harvard, which has already cost the university more than $2.6 billion in federal funding. Now to new information about Sunday's deadly ambush of firefighters in Idaho. The town of Coeur d'Alene continues to mourn the 2 firefighters who were killed. Investigators say the 20-year-old who pulled the trigger as they responded to put out a wildfire had been spiraling in recent months. He was reportedly living out of his car after moving out of an apartment that he shared with a roommate earlier this year. The guy also recently shaved off his long hair, we're told. Investigators believe the accused shooter acted on his own and killed himself before police were able to arrest him. In the meantime, the Coeur d'Alene Fire Department, which lost 2 veteran battalion chiefs in that attack, is now adding a police escort to every call it responds to, no matter how routine. That's a quick check of your headlines. We'll have more headlines coming your way shortly, but now let's get you over to David.
Okay, T. Bates, appreciate it. Turning our attention now back to, of course, Capitol Hill, the big, beautiful bill and the mad dash to get it to the president's desk by Friday. What are the odds of that happening? Joining us now with insight into all things is Steve Gruber, of course, host of America's Voice Live here on RAV. Steve, I mean, you can talk about the big, beautiful bill. It's just changing by the second, by the minute. But this Elon Musk Trump thing, this is bad. And this isn't just a made-up media story in terms of, they're just trying to get them to fight. This is a problem. This is a problem. We need to acknowledge that.
Let's start with the office pool. July 4th, 5th, 6th, excuse me, 1 second. Better now.
Good.
Over under on the 4th of July. I think it's going to be over. I don't think they get there by the 4th of July. The Elon Musk, Donald Trump back and forth it's unsightly. It's unnecessary. I wish it would go away. Is it really a big problem? Probably not. Except that, Donald Trump makes a decent point insofar as how much money does Elon Musk get for his cars, for his rockets, for all the things that he does from government subsidies? That's a legitimate point. It's also a legitimate point the government spends too damn much money. Elon's not wrong about that. We spend too much money. And then we've got not enough Democrats with spine to actually say, no, illegal aliens should not get, Medicaid benefits, among so many other things. 1.4 million stay on there because you couldn't muster 7 Democrats to do the right thing for the American people while we're $37 trillion in debt. Give me a break. It's insanity. We got 3, but you needed 7. And so 1.5 million illegals continue to get Medicaid. And that's just one example. They're getting SNAP benefits. They're getting free housing. They're getting benefits from New York City, the state of California, the federal government. The list goes on. The good news is I hope that this ruling from the Supreme Court on Friday means that Donald Trump could say, no more of this in an executive order and couldn't be stopped by a federal district judge that was way out of their lane. We'll see where this ends up. There's so much to talk about here. The big, beautiful bill. I don't know if it's big anymore. I don't know if it's beautiful. I don't know how much it's going to get across the finish line. My chief complaint is with John Thune today. I'm not going to kid you. Look, Thune could have gotten rid of the parliamentarian. All you had to do was replace her or ignore her. He's not required to listen to her. This is something that was put in the 1930s. It's not constitutional, the parliamentarian. Who is she to decide? One person gets to decide for 335 million people what we spend, don't spend, do or don't do? That's not how it's supposed to work. Unelected, Harry Reid, the ghost of Harry Reid, rearing its ugly head 13 years on. It's pretty frightening.
Steve, President headed our way to one of my favorite places in the world, which is the Florida swamps. It is as we speak. This is not to stop this time at his Mar-a-Lago mansion, but to take a tour of Alligator Alcatraz for illegals. Now, the building is being constructed, I guess, on an abandoned airfield and will be able to house about 3,000 illegals with criminal records when fully completed. Ron DeSantis touted this complex and the speed at which it could start actually operating. Take a listen to this, Steve.
The state of Florida is all in on President Trump's mission, and obviously you have ICE operations, but that's not enough. And so there needs to be more ability to intake, process, and then deport. So this answers that. This is going to be able to have more than 3,000 illegals can be processed through here. We've got a massive runway right behind us where any of the federal assets that they want to fly these people back to their own country, they can do it one-stop shop.
Steve, this is going to be interesting. Do you think that, I mean, this is really reminiscent of the original Alcatraz, right? Do you think this is going to have any deterrence factor?
No, but it'll be effective as a holding facility. Deterrent factor, no, because criminals are criminals. Alcatraz was not a deterrent either. But once you're there, you're there. Because where are you going to go? It doesn't matter if there's alligators or not. It's a swamp. Where are you going to go in a swamp for mile after mile after mile? There's no place to go, no place to run. So once you're there, you're stuck there. And I wonder if people like Kilmar Abreu Garcia, you know, it would help us sidestep some of the landmines that Democrats put in front of us every day to protect this country, because they don't care about the country. They care about power and money. That's true of some Republicans, too, you may have noticed. But maybe Kilmar Abreu Garcia could have gone there instead of El Salvador, and then you would have had no issue with where he was spirited off to. And for criminals, look, we're talking about child molesters, murderers, violent criminals. Put them there. And then we'll decide where they go in their procedures next. We'll give them due process from their jail cell right there in the middle of the Everglades, in the middle of that swamp, right? I think it's personal, and I think it's perfect. But deterrent, look, a lot of these folks have already committed the crimes. They're already on the list of people that Tom Homan and Kristi Noem want taken off the streets of America, which they should. While Democrats sit behind their gated communities and say, no, let them stay here. I'll tell you what, let them stay in your gated community and not in my neighborhood. How about that?
Hey, Steve, top of mind for me this morning, and I'd love to get your perspective because, first of all, I respect it. It seems to me that at the moment, senators are kind of dealing with this conundrum of ideological differences in the one big beautiful bill, or passing it just in order to get a legislative victory. Do you see it that way, first of all? And second of all, should ideological differences cede to the legislative victory? How should they go about this? How do you see this?
You know, I see a lot of problems here. Look, it would be nice if you could have senators that saw the reality of the fact that America's $37 trillion in debt. But instead, what do you have? You have people like Chris Murphy, the senator from Connecticut, saying, man, look what Mamdani did in New York. We should do more of that. Seriously? The Democrats have taken socialism and communism and then moved it mainstream. So how do you make a deal with somebody on the other side of the aisle who actually believes that what Mamdani is promising in New York with free supermarkets and free childcare and free buses and free handouts and everything else, how do you make a deal with that side of the aisle? I mean, the historic failures of socialism / communism are very well known, and they don't care. So I don't know how you bridge that divide. And then you look at the Republicans, Tom Tillis. He's lost. He's gone. He might as well declare himself a Democrat, honestly. He's made a lot of complaints, but he attacks the whole thing and then says, I quit. I'm going to take my toys and go home. Good, Tom. See you later. The good news is for North Carolina, we will get a conservative in place of him, because I think that North Carolina is following the lead of Iowa and Ohio and Florida. It's not a swing state anymore. Look at North Carolina's elections over the last few cycles. North Carolina has become a red state. That's good. Tom Tillis, goodbye. Don't let the door hit you, as they say. But as far as getting a deal with these Democrats, I don't know how you do it. These people embrace Zoran the moron. I mean, how do you deal with that?
The moron.
Sorry, David. I thought it fit. If the shoe fits, kick yourself with it. I mean, come on. The guy's terrible. The guy's awful. Eric Adams is going to win, I think. I hope. I'm rooting for Eric Adams. Think about that.
Right.
But that's where, it
says something.
Look, it's the biggest city in America. What happens to New York matters to the rest of us. See, a lot of people may not think so, but it matters to the rest of us. Yes. What happens there to some extent. And this Zoran guy, he's not even he's Ugandan. He doesn't even identify as an American according to his own mother. And people like Chris Murphy are like, hey, we need to be more like this guy.
Yeah.
Really?
Steve,
Anyhow.
we've got to go. We're going to Anchor Jail. You're coming with us at this point. So thank you for being here, Steve. Oh, yeah, we got to go.
God bless America.
We got to run.
Eat your cornbread.
Cornbread in America. Steve Gruber. All right. Coming next, is Social Security about to go broke? New CBO estimates say the agency may be insolvent by the end of 2033. So is there anything policymakers can do to keep the program sustainable? LOL. And if it happens, what happens to all of us? We're coming back on American Sunrise in a moment. Busy Tuesday.
Welcome back to American Sunrise. I'm American Sunrise contributor Emily Finn. It's great to have you with us this morning. Time now to drain the swamp. And this morning we are flushing out anyone standing in the way of finding a solution to the Social Security problem. The headline from Just the News: Social Security may be insolvent by the end of 2033, CBO reports data predicts, highlighting urgency. The director of policy analysis at the Tax Foundation, Garrett Watson, has said that Social Security is on a rapid path to insolvency by mid-2030s if policymakers do not take action to make the program sustainable. Ugh, that looks a little terrifying there. We want to know what you think. Let us know on Rumble or Getter. Hop on and let your voice be heard. Coming up before the market opens, we've got info you'll want to hear when it comes to your dollars and common sense. Jake Novak joins us with his take on your wallet and the financial week ahead as American Sunrise continues.
It's almost Independence Day, and all of America will be celebrating. But here in Real America's Voice, we want to celebrate you. Every day from June 30th through July 4th, we're giving away a handcrafted, hand-painted hardwood flag to one lucky RAV viewer. These beautiful flags come from YourAmericanFlagStore.com, where 10% of every purchase goes to Your American Flag Foundation. Scan the QR code to opt in for your chance to win and receive future RAV promotions from our hearts for your home. Use code RAV for free shipping.
back, everyone. We're getting you ready for the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange. It's going to ring here in just a little bit. Long Island, New York, that you just saw there. As you can see, not starting off so hot in pre-market trading. All three major indices are down right now. They're in the red. However, gold, silver, and crude oil are up right now. We'll, of course, continue to monitor all of it for you and take you to New York for the opening bell there at the New York Stock Exchange here. That's going to happen in short order. But now let's get you over to David.
All right, T. Bates, appreciate it. So are you heading out on the road this July 4th weekend, everyone? Well, be prepared for a pleasant surprise. Ooh, that's a tease. Well, join us now to talk about that and more. American Sunrise Early Edition host and the man behind Jake's Takes on Substack. That would be Jake Novak. There you are, Jake. Hello. So I assume we're talking about gas prices. Am I wrong? Am I right? It's in prompter. So
no, you're right.
I'm right.
Gasoline prices for this summer will be lower than they've been in 4 years for any summer. And it's
Jake, give me a moment. I know I want to hear you wax poetic. We've got Tom Homan giving a press conference real quick. I was told to jump in because here he's coming to the mic. Stand by, Jake's Take. We're going to get Tom Homan's take here as he's moving to the microphones here. We're assuming he'll talk like he always does. If not, Jake, I guess you'll talk. Hold on. Here he goes. No, it doesn't look like he's going to do it. All right. Well, that was the shortest press conference in television history. Jake, back to you and your take. No Tom Homan take. Please continue where you left off. Sometimes he talks, sometimes he doesn't.
Always leave the audience wanting more. Tom Homan following that rule very well. We definitely want more from it. All right. But no, I want to say that gasoline prices for this summer will be the lowest they've been for a summer in 4 years. We're at $3.17 a gallon, down another penny overnight. That's the national average. I know a lot of you are paying less. A lot of you are paying more. Hey, in California, David, the average price for a gallon of regular, $4.59. So you're paying $1.42 more a gallon in California, and a new gas tax is going into effect today, as if they're not already paying that much. So, of course, it matters what state you live in. So try to fill up somewhere other than California. That's my advice.
Yeah, and here's another piece of advice, because I was just in California 2 weeks ago in Lake Tahoe. $6.75 for gas in Lake Tahoe. So whatever you do, please don't fill up in Lake Tahoe. Just a quick little pro tip here on American Sunrise. All right, Jake, let's talk a little bit about Jerome Powell. He's on his way out. We all know that. Trump was looking for a replacement. His term ends in May of next year, but that's not happening. What do you think is going to happen? Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, says, if he needs to do it, he'll step in and be Fed chair. What do you see happening here, sir?
It's interesting, the different and new ways to put pressure on Jerome Powell. President Trump's coming up with a lot of new ideas. So we know President Trump's been publicly bashing him in a way that no president has bashed a Fed chairman in the past. But last week he introduced a new tactic, saying he might, again, reportedly saying that he might appoint a shadow Fed chair, someone who isn't exactly the Fed chair, but someone who would speak to the news media, speak to Wall Street, and say what he or she would do if they were in charge of the Fed. So we learned yesterday that one of those people could be Scott Bessent, who's currently the Treasury Secretary. I assume he could play the role as shadow Fed chairman even while he's still the Treasury Secretary, where he's getting a lot of high marks from people across the board. So maybe that's one idea. But that will put a lot of pressure on Jay Powell. I mean, the idea here, David, as you alluded to, is to get him to step down before May of next year. He's got 11 more months, or I guess now 10 more months. That's the idea, to see if there's enough pressure to put him in. And, there's other things going against him right now. He went to Congress last week and promised that the new Fed headquarters didn't have a lot of lavish lovely amenities in it. And it turns out it does. And so now there are people saying he lied to Congress. I mean, honestly, he may see resignation as his only way out really soon. Listen, I have mixed feelings about him. All I can say is his fellow central bankers, especially in Europe, have been cutting rates really aggressively all year while he hasn't. And that's making it really hard for anyone to continue to support him right now.
Well, why exactly? We keep hearing it's because of all of the tariff uncertainty. Is that the whole story exactly? And why in the world would he not do that and help spur the economy by cutting interest rates?
Well, if he had been consistent, David, and said, hey, I'm not cutting rates because inflation is still a problem in this country, and if he had kept very consistent on that on that position, I'd really defend him, because I actually think inflation is too high still in this country. I think President Trump's done an amazing job to get it relatively under control. But still, we've got a long way to go. The problem, David, is last year around the election, he cut rates twice. Now, he says it wasn't for partisan reasons and to help Kamala Harris's campaign. But it looks bad because inflation was much worse back then. So why did he cut rates then and not now? That's the problem, David. This is where he's really in trouble. And I don't think it passes the smell test. He may not have been literally trying to help Kamala Harris, but what he was doing was making it clear that he's not really being consistent about the inflation pressures and cutting rates. And that is a huge problem. You got to be consistent. And most of the Fed chairmen love them or hate them in the past. And there was one woman, Janet Yellen. They were at least consistent in their policies pretty much. Again, not always, but a lot more consistency than we're seeing from Jay Powell. And that's where he's in big trouble.
Yeah. Not to put you on the spot, we got about 20 seconds or so, but you got any names for Fed chair, the people that you might like to see in that position? I don't know if anybody comes to mind.
Well, I know someone who's dying for the job, and that's Larry Kudlow, who I used to be his executive producer for years. I don't know if he's still eligible for the job. He's getting up there. But boy, he wants that job. I can tell you that right now. Other than that, a lot of people, really good people out there who want it, definitely.
Jake's Takes every day here on I call us the late edition, American Sunrise. You're, of course, the early edition. Thank you, Jake. I appreciate it. Where do people go? Substack, right? Jake's Takes. Is that how they go?
JakeNovak.substack.com. I got little short podcasts on business and in the general news every day.
Got it. All right. Appreciate it, Jake. Time to head over to T. Bates in Denver. Opening bell time, sponsored by AMAC.
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can write the course of America.
We're less than a minute away from the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange. The applause is about to get underway, and then we'll wait for the bell to ring. You can kind of hear the applause there in the back. Ralliant is at the podium. They're applauding. They're getting their day in front of the camera. And then momentarily, we're going to hear the bell ring, and we'll get an idea of what the market's looking like. Pre-market trading not looking so hot on any of the three major indices. So you heard the bell there ring. So let's get an idea of what things are looking like now. And just like that, the Dow and S&P 500 remaining down. The NASDAQ went up briefly, but as you saw, it fell back just moments ago as we were on the air. So we'll continue to monitor that throughout the day. Gold, silver, and crude oil all remaining pretty high. Gold up more than 2 full percentage points, almost 3 percentage points. So we'll continue to monitor all of that for you throughout the morning. Coming up here on American Sunrise, a story that must be heard as Independence Day approaches. Pride in America remains near record lows while Republicans continue to express more pride in the United States than Democrats and independents. The results of a shocking new survey ahead.
It's almost Independence Day, and all of America will be celebrating. But here in Real America's Voice, we want to celebrate you. Every day from June 30th through July 4th, we're giving away a handcrafted, hand-painted hardwood flag to one lucky RAV viewer. These beautiful flags come from YourAmericanFlagStore.com, where 10% of every purchase goes to Your American Flag Foundation. Scan the QR code to opt in for your chance to win and receive future RAV promotions from our hearts for your home. Use code RAV for free shipping.
Welcome to American Sunrise. I'm Dr. G. Thanks for joining us this morning. It is time now to take on the political pulse of America. The beat today as we approach the 4th of July weekend, Independence Day. A new Gallup poll finds American pride, listen to this, is at a record low. And who is dragging those numbers down? Well, Democrats, of course. The latest survey from Gallup finds Republicans are far more likely to take pride in the U.S. of A. Currently, 59% of Republicans and only 34% of Democrats say they are extremely proud to be an American. When we compare those numbers to 20 years ago, all political groups, including even independents, are seeing some kind of decline in American pride. Kind of sad and not what we want to hear as we go into Independence Day. Right, Emily?
Definitely. I mean, this kind of makes sense, right? Democrats, how can they take pride when their president over the past 4 years was asleep at the wheel? What do they have to take pride in? Of course, Republicans are way more proud to be American, way more excited to celebrate 4th of July weekend because the guy leading our party is delivering on all of his promises and making America better for all of us, Gina.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, so for more, I think we are going to bring in political analyst. He is founder of the Caldwell Institute. He is author of the new Trump-endorsed book, The Day My Brother Was Murdered. And most importantly, he's an amazing person and an incredible friend, Giano Caldwell. Good morning, Giano. Thank you for being on the show with us. We want to talk about your book, absolutely, in just a moment. But I'm curious whether you think that the things that President Trump is doing directly impact things like the reason why you wrote this book about the brother that you lost to violence in the very first place.
Yeah, I got to tell you, first and foremost, it's an honor to be with you two ladies. You're an inspiration to all of us. I got to tell you, this President Donald Trump has been a law and order president. He's appointed people like Pam Bondi to be our attorney general, who joined us on our board of the Caldwell Institute for Public Safety when we launched. This is a group of people who believe that we need to get the country back on track. We've largely been lost over the Biden years, and there's been a complete collapse of safety in many cities around the country. If you just look at Los Angeles, just a few weeks ago, the ICE protests, the rioting, the looting, the things that their governor, Gavin Newsom, has encouraged. And I say he has encouraged it because he didn't want to repeal Prop 47, which reduced penalties on criminal activity throughout the state of California. He did not want to repeal that, but the voters did, and they did this past election. I got to tell you, this president has made sure that criminals know that they no longer have a standing in the United States of America, and that's why he's deporting many of those folks that came over the border illegally, terrorists, rapists, murderers, many folks that we would not want in our country. He's doing a great job.
Really well said there, Giano. You know, it's funny because I think about California. I think about this is where I met you for the first time when your book Taken for Granted came out. I met you at that book signing there. And California has just gotten so much worse over the years, you know, since that time with all of these crazy liberal policies. Now, I do want to talk about your new book about your brother Christian. It was actually just endorsed by President Trump. President Trump wrote on Truth Social that it is a tragic story and yet one in which so much can be learned about violent crime in America and how to stop it. Gee, I am just so proud of you for turning a tragedy in your family into something that is really helping people and making a difference. Tell us more about what inspired you to write this book. Walk us through what happened to Christian and the work that you're doing now.
Absolutely. And I'm honored to have President Trump's endorsement of my book. It's titled The Day My Brother Was Murdered, My Journey Through America's Violent Crime Crisis. And in it, I talk about what happened to my brother, because on June 24th, 2022, my life changed forever when my innocent teenage baby brother, Christian, was murdered in the city of Chicago. And since then, I've been out for justice, not just for him, but families across the country. That's why I established the Caldwell Institute for Public Safety, which goes after those George Soros-funded progressive prosecutors. I call them political prosecutors because that's exactly what they are. They refuse to enforce the law fairly. They refuse to lock up criminals. They let them go out. They believe in no cash bail. many of the things that have taken our country to the brink in multiple cities. This book, The Day My Brother Was Murdered, My Journey Through America's Violent Crime Crisis, I examined that very day my brother was murdered, where there was 150 people across the nation that was murdered. People like James from Philadelphia, who was an Army veteran who couldn't sleep often. So at 1 or 2 in the morning, he would often go to a park in his neighborhood because he couldn't sleep. And on that day, June 24th, there were teenagers, some even 10 and 11 years old, in that park. And he said, "What are you all doing out here? You need to go home." And what happened? They beat him to death with a traffic cone. Or people like Catherine. Catherine was a mother, a wife, a grandmother, 64 years old, a chemical engineer, leaving home in Texas on her day from work, June 24th, when gunfire broke out on the highway. She ended up losing her life because a drug deal went wrong. There's so many stories in this book that are tragic, and we already know how bad it is. Your audience knows how bad it is, but what do we do about it? I talk to people for solutions, people like John Walsh from America's Most Wanted, people like Sean Hannity, people like Dr. Drew Pinsky on how the mental health crisis is contributing to the crime crisis. I've talked to faith leaders, educators, because we have to do something about this. It happened to my family, and it's quite unfortunate, obviously. I just don't want to see this happen to anyone else. So I came up with a blueprint of how to solve it.
And you, of course, are going to be coming here and doing an event in Palm Beach. I'm going to help you with that. I'm excited about it.
I'm super excited, Dr. G.
Yes, good. But talk to us a little bit about what prompted you. You were in Los Angeles. You took note of the politicians there. You said, I'm going to go to a red state where the politicians are different. What sort of a difference has that made to you? And I also think, Giano, I want to ask you secondarily, when you talk to people, leftists who probably assume you're on their side, right? We all think that, right, you know, if you've encountered gun violence, if you're a black man living in America, all the things, you go in this box. How do you talk to us about how you gently prompt them into your current spiritual status of being a conservative, living in a red state, and the difference that's made in your life?
Absolutely. And you know what? I grew up in Chicago, lived in D.C., lived in L.A., and I live in Miami, Florida now. This is my first time actually in a red state, and I was driven here because of COVID. In LA, they treated us like prisoners for 2 months, making decisions not based on science, but based on politics. And moving to Florida, honestly, is the best thing that's happened to me. We are in a red state. We do have a great, fantastic governor, somebody who's strong on policy, who's informed. And we got a lot of cool people here in Miami. They happen to be conservative, but they're very cool. The politics aren't in your face. So when I meet people who do assume because I'm black that maybe I'm a Democrat, or they start with the rhetoric, I correct them immediately and gently tell them about the policies of the Republican Party, many in which I think the African-American community support, but the Democrats have been masterful with their lies about the Republican Party. And that's why it's so important for Republicans to go into those communities, like Donald Trump did in the Bronx, where people don't want you there, where you're not liked, where you're talked about negatively, because it's harder for people to try to demonize our party when they've had an opportunity to meet people within our party. And more often than not, that does not happen. So we got to go into every community where the Democrats are, whether it be on the south side of Chicago or in the Bronx. We need to go and speak to every individual and tell them about the good of our party. They're seeing the results. Donald Trump has helped that. We've seen growth with African Americans in the last election, Hispanics, every group that you can imagine. But after Donald Trump leaves office, we have to continue. And that's what I want to press upon our Republican friends alike across the board. We have to follow the Trump plan to get these minorities into our party.
The work is absolutely going to have to continue. And you're right, Giano. Sometimes it's just taking that first step of having a conversation and opening up the communication. So walk us through what more the Caldwell Institute is doing to help with these types of things, to help with public safety. Tell us more about what your organization is doing.
Yes, absolutely. So we got involved in the George Gascon race. As you know, George Gascon was heavily funded by George Soros. Last year, we got involved, did media ad buys, all kinds of media things on the ground there in Los Angeles, fully got behind Nathan Hochman, who is now the district attorney of Los Angeles County, a law and order candidate, one in which Los Angeles desperately needed. So for those people who were rioting and protesting recently in Los Angeles, and they may have thought, they may not even have known that George Gascon isn't there. They just know that it's been soft on crime, which is an ideology in and of itself. Those folks are finding out the hard way that it is not happening in Los Angeles. They're going to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. We're now looking at races like Larry Krauser in Philadelphia, Alvin Bragg in New York City, and many others across the country. This is our first year in. We just made 1 year, and we're expanding beyond just George Soros prosecutors, political prosecutors, to gubernatorial races and mayoral races. So we encourage everyone to go join us at CaldwellInstitute.org, support our efforts, look at our resources. And if you know anybody who's experienced violent crime and they need help, we have resources there for them. Manuals written by prosecutors and police chiefs on how to work with prosecutors and police, how to deal with it from a mental health standpoint, written by Dr. Drew Pinsky, how to get press coverage for your family, a manual written by myself. Again, that's at CaldwellInstitute.org. Support our efforts there. And, I encourage people to follow me on social media at Giano Caldwell on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
The Day My Brother Was Murdered. That is a Trump-endorsed book. Giano, I have to believe that you carrying on Christian's legacy the way you have is going to inspire millions of people before you're finished. We know we can get your book just about everywhere. I think it's very easy to search things these days and find it. In the 1 minute remaining, tell us quickly your favorite story from a reader so far.
I'll say what has been a heartbreaking, eye-opening story in the book, My Day Was Murdered, the day my brother was murdered, my journey through America's violent crime crisis, is baby Cecilia. Cecilia was 5 months old on June 24th when her parents, her mom and dad, were in the front seat of the car, her baby brother, 3 years old, right next to her, and they thought they heard fireworks. Come to find out, the baby was shot. And these are situations that I think really for a lot of people provide the kind of empathy that is needed as we look through these situations and we search for answers. This can happen to anyone at any age. All races of people are covered in this book because I wanted people to see this as a national issue. It's not just, those folks over there, but this is something that can impact all of us, and we have to do something about it. And it starts with ensuring that soft on crime policies are repealed, and we have a strong law and order centrist focus when we come to our policy making.
Absolutely. Well, Giano, thank you so much for your heartfelt book that I know will bless so many. And thank you for being with us here on American Sunrise this morning. We'll look forward to seeing you when you're in Palm Beach with your event. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right, everybody, a new poll breaking down how the right feels about the Trump administration's strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities. The numbers may surprise you. Right back with that and more as American Sunrise continues after the break. And later also, Toto, guess what? We're not in Kansas anymore. There's no place like home except when it's lifted off the ground in a massive tornado. Look, you guys, Florida woman is sharing her story after a scary storm turned into a scene straight out of The Wizard of Oz. You don't want to miss this. We'll be right back.
It's almost Independence Day, and all of America will be celebrating. But here in Real America's Voice, we want to celebrate you. Every day from June 30th through July 4th, we're giving away a handcrafted, hand-painted hardwood flag to one lucky RAV viewer. These beautiful flags come from YourAmericanFlagStore.com, where 10% of every purchase goes to Your American Flag Foundation. Scan the QR code to opt in for your chance to win and receive future RAV promotions from our hearts for your home. Use code RAV for free shipping. Let's spill some tea.
Let's Spill Some Tea is sponsored by Artillery Tea Company. ArtilleryTCO.com is the website. Use the promo code America's Tea for 25% off of your first order. Artillery Tea is all natural, it's whole leaf, the tea bags are chemical free, and each can be used twice. Artillery Tea Company is family and veteran owned and operated, and a portion of your purchase goes to help veteran and first responder charities. Again, here's the website, ArtilleryTCO.com. Just use the promo code America's Tea for 25% off of your first order. All right, let's send things over to Emily Finn now.
All right, thank you, Terrence. It is time now to spill some tea, and in the cup today, a new poll finds the majority of MAGA supports President Trump's airstrikes destroying Iranian nuclear facilities. Despite divisions among prominent MAGA influencers debating if the attacks truly do support President Trump's America First agenda, 70% of those within the MAGA movement say that they strongly support the strikes. That's compared to 49% of those who identify as a supporter of the Republican Party rather than the MAGA base. Let's bring in David, Gina, and Terrence for more here. You know, sometimes there's really loud voices, but 70% is undeniable. I mean, that's a huge majority of the MAGA base that was supporting the president on this, Terrence.
No, absolutely. And I think most Americans, if they really dig deep, they want to keep the country safe, and they realize that Iran was a threat to our national security, both by Iran having a nuclear weapon and then with the sleeper cells still in this country. And so a message needed to be sent. But now I think the bigger issue, Dr. Gina, is making sure we don't rest on our laurels and think, oh, okay, just because we've done away with Iran's nuclear arsenal, that this issue is settled. The reality is Iran cannot be trusted, and so even beyond diplomacy, we need to be on guard for whatever Iran might have in store.
Well, and sleeper cells, we know, and just rogue individuals even running around America who sympathize with Iran and with radical Islamist ideology. And so all of those things are scary, and you're right, Terrence, they don't go away, and we have to be vigilant. But you know, this number strikes me because earlier in the show where we talked about less than 50% of people feeling patriotic about America, and you look at this number, 70% of MAGA supports Iran strikes, and I keep wondering where the disconnect is. David, what's your analysis on that?
There's a couple of things going on here. First of all, I think that when we hear Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and others, you know, those are always the loudest voices in the room. They have the biggest megaphones, and I think we get distorted because the reason this number doesn't surprise me at all for two reasons. One, these were surgical strikes. MAGA is not pure isolationist. They don't want forever wars, but they're not pure isolationists, unlike like Tucker and Candace Owens. Secondly, this is Israel. This has to do with Israel. I know it's Iran, but it's Israel, right? It has to do with Israel. And so the reason that's important is because if you really go back to, there's a lot of folks in MAGA that are new to politics or former Democrats or independents or people that couldn't care at all, and then Trump has kind of inspired them. But there's also a big part of the MAGA base as well that used to vote for George W. Bush, that used to vote for all this type of stuff. So they're more the traditional Republicans that became MAGA. You know, I guess I would be in that group, right? I mean, I'm a boomer, and I'm not a boomer, I'm Gen X actually, but I'm almost a boomer, who was voted for George W. Bush. You know, I was a tried and true kind of Republican type deal, and then realized that MAGA is a much better way to go, but I'm still kind of a traditional guy. And so I think you're going to see a lot of folks within MAGA in that bubble, and that's why you have 70% of MAGA believe in that, because once again, if it was boots on the ground, that number would be 5%, 10%. But that it's not boots on the ground. It's surgical strikes. It's Israel. You put all those together, and I think you've got 70%. Makes sense to me.
Yeah, definitely. We want to know what our viewers think as well on all of this. Hop on to Rumble or Getter and let your voice be heard. Coming up, it looks like a scene out of The Wizard of Oz and almost Gone with the Wind. You have to see the moment an EF1 tornado in Florida lifts an elderly woman's home off the ground. What's more, she survived the onslaught to tell her tale. She'll tell us how she did it next as American Sunrise continues.
American Sunrise. I'm Dr. G. Thanks for joining us today. It's time to get to our sunny side up in the pan today. A 76-year-old Florida woman now speaking out after video footage of her home being lifted off the ground, quite literally, from a massive tornado has gone viral. Take a look at your screen. Deborah Metler says the EF1 tornado in Largo, Florida was like something out of a movie. Her mobile home's Wizard of Oz moment was all caught on her neighbor's Ring camera, and Metler was inside her home for the entire experience. Her home was off the ground, you guys, for literally 15 seconds. Can you even imagine this? Swirling around at 110 miles per hour before slamming back down to the ground.
It was really kindled to a Wizard of Oz experience. I didn't realize I was actually up in the air. I was too busy doing somersaults and getting thrashed from one side of the room to the wall to the other side. I ended up back here in the bedroom. I had been in what was a family room and stepped out, which was good because it's no longer there at all. So I'd stayed in that room. I don't know what would have happened to me.
Oh my goodness, you guys. God must have a purpose for her life. Metler's neighbor says she is stunned that the 76-year-old was able to survive this scary situation with only a couple of bruises. You guys, having grown up in the Midwest, tornadoes are not that unusual. And then moving to Alabama, where I started my broadcasting career on the ground as a tornado moved through and killed hundreds of people. You guys might remember that. That is, seeing the aftermath is just always stunning to me and beyond what you can even conceive, I think. I can't imagine. I've never